AJ Gentile, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
It's good to have you.
This is exciting for me. I'm a fan.
Well, this is exciting for me because I'm a fan. In fact, I was telling you at breakfast, you are the only YouTube channel that I watch on a consistent basis because I don't want to hear all the noise and stuff. I kind of live in it. And man, you just have a great presentation, great topics. It just sucks you in. So you are what me and my wife watch just about every night when we climb into bed. And so to meet you is pretty surreal. Thank you for coming.
At breakfast, and I said that. I said, I don't believe you, but it's very sweet. And I'll say it again, but it's very nice of you to say.
Well, it's real. It's real.
It.
But yeah, so I want to talk about a couple of the videos that I've seen on your platform in particular. And I want to talk about why you got into it and where you came from, and I think it'll be an awesome interview. So, but everybody starts off with an introduction here. So, AJ Gentile, the creative force behind the hit YouTube channel The Why Files, where you dive into mysteries, myths, and conspiracies with millions of subscribers. A talented voice actor, producer, and writer known for your captivating narration and the hilarious commentary from your animated sidekick, the Hecklefish. A Mensa member with a sharp, skeptical mind, always presenting intriguing stories before breaking down the facts and scientific explanations. You hook me every single time. A dedicated truth seeker who started the Why Files in 2020, blending entertainment with education to help audiences question the unknown while grounding it in reality. And you do a perfect job of it. So, a couple of things to get through here before we actually kick the interview off. Everybody gets a gift.
Really?
Any guesses?
I mean, you already let me shoot the Winchester. That was a great gift.
It was a good gift, right?
Yes, sir.
You gonna get one?
Yes, immediately.
What'd you think of that SIG?
I loved it. The optic was amazing.
You gonna get one of those too?
I don't know what that is. You know, I'd like guns, but I'm not a...
Well, I got a buddy over at SIG. His name's Jason, and we talk about your show all the time.
Wait.
And so he gave me this. He wanted me to give it to you.
What?
So that's what you were shooting out there before the interview. That's the SIG P211 GTO.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, no.
21 rounds in the mag, plus one in the pipe.
That is incredible.
Yeah. So what'd you think of that thing? Did you like it?
Now I love it. That's amazing. I didn't see that. This is like being on Oprah. You didn't even telegraph that gift. That is amazing.
I'm glad you like it. And
I don't think people know how nice you are.
well, they'll figure it out maybe eventually.
I don't know.
Vigilance Elite gummy bears, legal in all 50 states, made in the USA. The SIG's actually made in the USA too. But yeah, that is our main merch. And they're hard to come by. They sell out quick. So I wanted to give you one of those.
And those are just regular gummies or...
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't eat a bunch of bags and call me and say, I don't feel anything yet. We've had that happen before.
Okay. So I eat these gummies after the other gummies.
They're probably worse for you than the good gummies, you know, because those have sugar and red dye and all the shit that's going to be illegal soon. So they'll probably be illegal in all 50 states here by the end of the year. But, and then we both have a Patreon account.
We do.
Right? So one of the things that I offer my Patreon community, and they've been here since the beginning when I started this thing in the attic of my house, and it was just me and my wife, and they've been through here. They've been with us since the very beginning. We've grown it into a hell of a community. And so one of the things that we do is we offer them to ask each and every guest a question. And this is from Ian Lane. On the Why Files, you walk a line between exploring wild conspiracies and keeping the audience grounded in facts. Have you ever stumbled on a piece of information that made you stop and think, this is bigger than I want to touch? This sounds like our breakfast conversation. And if so, what made you decide to hold back?
The one episode that really got me emotional was I was doing the dark side of DARPA. And I went into that. Everyone knows DARPA and their projects and their science going back to whatever, 40s, 50s, 60s. But as I was going through the research, I found the connection between DARPA and Agent Orange and Agent Purple and all of that, all the Vietnam chemicals. And I got very emotional about that because my father-in-law suffers from everything, every illness that you can have from Agent Orange.
Was he a Vietnam vet?
He was Air Force.
Damn.
Yeah, Tui base. It was a very frustrating episode because it's close to me and my family. And it took Jerry 30 years to get his benefits. And it just made me furious. Because my family's stocked with military and law enforcement. And it's, I think in that episode I said something like, when your country needs you, you answer the call. But when you need your country, take a number. And it took 30 years. And it wasn't that much money. And that was an episode that was very emotional, and I attacked very aggressively. You know, whether it was DuPont or the government or CIA or the military, I attacked everybody because I was just like Yosemite Sam because I was so angry. And when I finished that episode, I was thinking, this isn't that super fun. You know, there's not a lot of fish. There's not a lot of, my show is supposed to be fun. Mm-hmm. So I was not going to I wasn't going to release it. And then I just felt it was important and maybe my platform could bring some attention to it. I didn't think anyone would really like that episode. And there was just an outpouring of response from vets saying thank you.
I got to watch. I haven't seen that one.
It starts out fun, but it gets kind of dark.
Did your dad get all of his benefits?
This is my father-in-law.
Your father-in-law?
I don't know if he got all of them. It wasn't a lot of money. There's not enough money for all the stuff that these guys, more soldiers were injured by the chemicals than were injured in combat. The Vietnam frustrates me, the whole subject.
Me too. Well, is he still alive? Mm-hmm. Well, I would love to help you get him all of the benefits that he deserves if he needs that. And so a little bit, you know, this isn't supposed to be about me at all, but when I left contracting for the CIA, I had nothing. And my best friend was, who was also a SEAL, and then we contracted together at the agency. He had fallen into heroin addiction, as a lot of vets do. And so I was trying to help him get better and put my whole life aside to make that happen. And so where I started was trying to find out how in the fuck do you get VA benefits, at least get the health care that you're deserved. And it was crazy. And I couldn't get anybody to help me. And then somebody had sent me a contact and said, you should call this woman. Her name's Peggy Matthews, and she's out of Boston. And she is an older woman, has a very small nonprofit, very grassroots, runs it out of the living room of her house, and took me in. And I credit this woman with saving my life and my best friend Gabe's life. Up to a certain point, he did wind up passing from his addiction. But she really took us under her wing and said, you know, I've been doing this for a long time. I want to help the special operations community because nobody understands it inside of the VA. Nobody gives a shit. And then when she got him, she asked me if I would help spread the word throughout the special ops community. And I did that. And now she has helped thousands of special ops guys. And, but her real passion is the Vietnam generation. So I will give you that contact. I'll make the connection. And, if there's anything that he's not receiving that he's entitled to, he'll get it.
I'll find
through
out.
her. And another thing, there is this, you had mentioned something about, you know, there's not enough money. That's fucking bullshit. Every single person that signs up and signs that dotted line to go into the military and serve this country, that money is already set aside for you up to 100% disability plus more. And so he's already entitled to it. It's just navigating the way to get there. And she's mastered it. So I'll give you that connection.
That'd be nice. It seems like the system is set up to be confusing, especially if you're an older guy and you're sick and you're just, trying to make your mortgage. I mean, come on.
Yeah. It's insane. It's insane how this country continues to treat the veterans that have served it from the beginning all the way up until this point. And it's a real travesty. But so DARPA was involved in Agent Orange and all this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, DARPA was involved in so many dark projects going back to the beginning. But yeah.
Damn. Well, that got heavy quick.
I know, we got right into the deep water.
Damn.
Instead of the fish.
But so I want to talk, where did you come from? How did the Y files start?
I guess I'll skip 20 years. Born in the Bronx, raised around New York City, Long Island. And back east was dabbling in stand-up and acting and voice work, and finally landed a decent gig in radio, working for MTV. You're not old enough.
You were working for MTV?
MTV and VH1 in early 2000s. So was doing that, and then came out to LA to work for Playboy Radio on Sirius XM. You're too young to remember that, but Sirius XM was a thing. And
I'm not as young as you think I am. I must look young today. I'm going to have to wear this more often.
So I was always around like show business, but always on the outside. Radio is like that's like the lowest rung. It's like there's like radio and then there's open micers. So I was always kind of on the outside, but I wanted to be a host. I wanted to be an on-camera host. I took classes and a lot of training. I did very well. Was auditioning a little bit, nothing really landed, and just kind of slipped away from it. And then over the course of the next maybe 10, 15 years, through a couple of different businesses that were always launched with my wife, Jen, and my brother, Gino, we opened a podcast studio around 2014.
Can I backtrack real quick? So you were trying to make it in the entertainment industry, and they stiff-armed you. In 4 years after you start a podcast, you're consistently in the top fucking 10. How hilarious is that? I hate the entertainment industry.
I spent 20 years.
You're the perfect example of what they missed. Like, how the fuck did you miss this one? Top 10 podcast in 4 years, totally missed it. I love it. I love these stories.
I won't say the network, but it was really glorious to turn down an offer last week from a network. It's like, I was here the whole time. So now the answer is no.
Still the same guy.
I am. Still talking about the same stuff. My host reel from 25 years ago is really me talking about Area 51 and aliens and conspiracies. It's like, that's what is fun to me. So we had a podcast studio. It fell apart. We tried it again in 2019. And we were a studio hosting shows. And we hosted a lot of big shows from a lot of comedians from the Comedy Store would operate out of our studio. And we weren't making any money. Couldn't make any money in podcasting. And then COVID hit. And then, Jen comes to me and says, they're going to lock down the city and all businesses are going to close. And I'm like, they can't do that. I said, don't listen to the media. They can't do that. It's against every law and constitution. We're going to be fine. She's like, I think they're going to do it. And they did it. I'm in Los Angeles and our studio is on Sunset, so the story gets worse. And so they locked us down, and me being me saying, I'm not wearing a mask and I'm not shutting down. We're staying open, and I was very vocal about it. Let them come and shut us down. Just roll camera on it. But it didn't matter because the talent wouldn't come in and nobody would come in. And everyone was afraid, and with the masks and everything. So now money's just falling. We're just going down the drain, living off of savings, not making anything, not really sure what to do. And then divine providence, I guess, was Black Lives Matter hit LA. And I don't know when I talk to people about what Los Angeles was like during that time, they're often surprised when I say that, I'm not used to seeing police SUVs upside down on fire, but we saw that all the time.
No, it was that
All
bad.
the time. It all the time. And like I'm surprised that nobody really knows that, but that information didn't get out. So at this time, the city's on fire. Our whole studio is surrounded by tents that we can't do anything about. And there was one night where they set fire to the building next door to us, which was a juice bar. And I don't know how much money's in a juice bar, but we just happened to be in a building that was just like a concrete block. We were in it was like a fortress. But when they were attacking the buildings on the block, I was there in the studio, asleep on the couch in the middle of the room, with guns on the table, with my wife there. And outside, it sounds like The Walking Dead. You just hear howling and screaming and sirens. And then after it calms down a little bit, maybe it's 3, 4 in the morning, we're on our way home, going down Sunset, make the left onto Highland. And for those people who know LA, Hollywood and Highland is a very busy intersection, and there's a lot of stores and stuff there. And it's just like zombies are out, and they're knocking in windows and looting everywhere. And we're just trying to get back home. And we're on Hollywood and Highland, and suddenly a crowd turns to us with baseball bats and just starts coming. And I throw it in reverse, and I'm flying backwards down Hollywood Boulevard in the middle of the night with all this stuff going on. And Jen's like, "You're going to hit somebody." I said, "Look, if they're in the street, they're meat. I'm not going to stop. They're going to yank us out of the car." We finally got home, and we said, "That's it. We're done. We're leaving. LA is done." We started packing immediately and left and headed to Scottsdale, Arizona. And that was I guess still 2020. No job, still living off savings. And
So they were just destroying everything in anyone
everything and anyone.
with no rhyme or reason.
Nope.
They just see a car coming towards them. They're like, "Yeah, that one.
Because
Let's get them."
we were stopped at the light. It's like, why am I stopped at the light? So then lights didn't matter. I got to get my wife out of here. So it was a frustrating and scary time, but it was a good time to get out of LA. And I loved Los Angeles. I got there in 2005. I felt like I was on vacation every day. I loved that city. It was amazing. And it's not anymore. And I hope it comes back. I think it has a chance to.
Man.
But in trying to figure out what to do, I had been watching all these comedians do podcasts. And I didn't think YouTube was anything. I thought YouTube was for you put your videos of your cats on there. I'm like an old guy. I'm watching cable. And Jen's like, "No, a lot of people watch YouTube." I'm like, "Really?" She said, our shows here have 14 million subscribers." I'm like, "What?"
What?
I'm like, "Oh." I said, "Well, I've been a writer, a host, a producer, an editor professionally for networks on and off all my life. I can do YouTube. That's like a layup." And it is the hardest thing I ever did. It was so hard. And I think you could relate to this. It was so hard that if I knew how hard it was, I probably wouldn't have had the stamina to stick with it, because nobody was watching. I've just video after video, pouring my heart into it. Nobody was watching. But I just felt like, I like doing this. And even though nobody was watching, there still were 500 people watching. And my Patreon had 12 people who are still members. And 2 of them are employees now. Hi, Victoria. She's she was a Patreon member who was just a rock star. It's like, we need to hire this one. And Jen, my executive producer. So it was just, do you want me to get into the channel?
What now? I want to hear the struggles.
The struggles?
I want to see how much we can relate on this.
When I first started, so I did a lot of research on how to do the channel right. How to make a living at this. And I wasn't looking to be 5 million subscribers. I don't even know why so many people watch. I'm still feel like I'm a scrappy little channel. And So it's very confusing to me.
You still feel like you're a scrappy little channel?
I do, and I feel like every day it's gonna go away, and the numbers we're plateauing. It's constant.
I
anxiety.
feel the same way.
It's constant. Anxiety.
Endless discussions with the team on we're declining. We're
right.
plateauing. It's over. They're going to censor us.
And it's so not over for you. And my last video is the best performing one in the history of the channel. So, okay, maybe we can still do this a little longer. But when I started the channel, the plan was to do science videos and then the weird ones that I liked and try to balance it. And all the YouTube consultants said, you got to skew young, high energy, smash that like. So my earlier videos my first video was about math. And then, I did top 10 lists, like 10 weirdest animals, dangerous places, scariest things, like everyone was doing. And it was like, hey, hit that like, I'm doing this. This is my energy. This is who I am. And it wasn't who I was. And nobody's watching this. No one was responding to it. And it didn't feel right anyway. I just felt like this is the performance they say to do. And I just started to get frustrated. And I guess about a year and a half in, and 60, 70 episodes, I just said, I'm going to just do what I want to do. I'm going to make the show that I would want to watch. And you know what? The biggest response I'm getting from the audience are people my age, 40s and 50s. So I'm just going to lean into Gen X, just be authentic and just tell the stories that I like. And then that's when it happened.
I love that, man.
I mean, that's so if there's creators watching you, which there are, my advice is just be yourself, be authentic, be raw, just let all the wounds show. Like I was telling you at breakfast on the Y-Files backstage, there's videos of me crying, talking about depression. I just own it. Just own it.
Man, you're like one of the only people I've ever heard that does this.
No.
Yeah, man. Are you kidding me? People are scared to death of authenticity. They're scared to death of authenticity and being vulnerable. And I've talked to countless people that, that want to start a YouTube. I love helping people. I mean, that's what this show kind of developed into what it is I just wanted to help people and bring exposure to everything from corruption to where it really started was I just got tired of like veterans not being able to get a business going because nobody would give them exposure. And so that's how it started, man, was bringing exposure to veteran businesses through their journeys of vulnerability, to be authentic. And it worked. But I think that, you can tell people, be authentic, be vulnerable. They can't do it.
It's hard to let down the guard. It certainly was for me as a lifelong performer. You're always doing a performance. Even if in your normal life you have certain characters or traits that you emphasize more with your buddies that when you're with your wife. There's kind of different roles that you play. So it's kind of hard. It's difficult to let down that guard. But what I started to...
How did you know? I mean, what hit you, especially coming from entertainment? I mean, it's just, everything's fake. The mainstream media is fake. The news channels are fake. They're all bought. They all have, politics is fake. Movies for a long time, I think people didn't realize how much propaganda is inserted into mainstream media. Hollywood movies. And until they went overboard, and then everybody kind of figured it out. And right. I'm with everybody else. I didn't have any inclination that it was all bullshit until everybody else started talking about it. But yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, they're scared to death of authenticity, and so how did you, especially coming from there and all the fakeness and all the bullshit moving it? I mean, what hit you that it was like just be authentic?
So. I suffer from anxiety and depression, but not severely. I'm a little medicated for it, but not heavily. Like I'm high functioning. I'm on the spectrum, but I'm high functioning. I'm very uncomfortable talking about myself, very uncomfortable being the center of attention. I'm the guy at the party hiding in the corner. So my outlet would be to perform, to do voice work, be a character, be on stage, be an actor, because then the lines are prepared for you. Even if you're doing stand-up, you've already written it. So you have control. I have control, even though I'm putting myself out there. I know what the words are. I know what comes next. I know what I'm doing right and wrong. So to be authentic, that all goes away. And it's like, I don't know what I'm going to say next. As I'm sitting here now, I don't know what I'm going to say next. But I think it was when I started talking to my community, which I would call a community more than an audience, but like the people that really supported me since the beginning. I just started engaging with them through live streams, and like with our Patreon live streams, fans turn their cameras on, like we all talked together. And I found myself just opening up because maybe because they were fans, they were just excited to hear from me, but it became almost like a therapy for me. Like I could tell these people anything. They're not judging me. There's always going to be the assholes in the comments. But for the most part, it was like, hang in there. I'm going through the same thing. What you're doing is important. It was very encouraging. So eventually the wall just comes down. And now when I live stream, you just don't know what I'm going to, Jen gets nervous. She'll hear me going into a direction. She's like, I don't think. I'm like, I'm just saying it. So I'm the most honest in my life when I'm talking on that stream to the people who watch the show. I'll say anything, and it's the truth. Now I won't out somebody. I won't share a secret if it's in confidence. But if someone asks me, are you going through something right now? Because you don't look good. Because for about a year during the channel, I was not doing well, and so I would say I'm not doing well. I'm stressed out all the time. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating. I'm losing weight. I'm not healthy. My doctor's concerned, and this is just where we are.
Wow.
But better now. It's a process.
You seem great. Are you comfortable here?
You make it comfortable. I was terrified coming here. At some point I want to start talking to if I'm researching an episode and I start emailing with the Grand Master Knights Templar, and I'm emailing with him for in research, it would be nice to actually have Timothy Hogan sit down and have a conversation about Knights Templar. That would be pretty cool. So if I'm going to do that, I need to be comfortable in a conversation. So I'm trying to do that here. And I specifically chose your show and you because your team is amazing. You've been kind since the beginning, extremely professional. But it seems like everybody's going out of their way to make me feel comfortable. Like we just shot guns, we had breakfast, we hung out. It just feels like you're hanging out with friends here, and I haven't met any of you guys before. But I knew that coming in because that's your reputation. And I've watched your interviews. I've read lots of articles about you, including hit pieces. And it's like, this is an interesting guy that I want to know. And I think I can learn a lot from just having a conversation with Shawn.
Man, well, thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. And it's going to mean a lot to my team, too. So
They're the best.
Thank you. What was the turning point?
For feeling better?
For the Y files.
When it started to be successful?
Was it a immediate pivot?
It was a hockey stick.
It was a hockey stick.
Yeah, it was a year and a half to 2 years of just flat. I think at end of year one was 40, 50 episodes. I had maybe 1,500 subscribers, 2,500, and nobody was watching. 200 views, 300 views. And the second year was similar. Started to get better. I think I ended the second year with 25,000 subscribers, but still was getting 2,500 views. So you can't make a living doing any of that. But I was enjoying it, and just seeing people respond to the content was encouraging. And I wasn't working. So it was like, I might as well just keep doing this because it's fun, and a few people are responding. And what happened was my brother Gino said, you should do TikTok. And I was like, no way I'm doing TikTok. No. He's like, you should put shorts on TikTok because that could expose people to the channel. So reluctantly I did it. And in just a few days, a couple of videos on TikTok brought in millions of views. I think it was, I did the coincidences between JFK and Abraham Lincoln. People just liked that video. And that brought a lot of people over to my channel. So suddenly I was at 250, 400,000 subscribers, which was incredible. But subscribers are a vanity number. Sponsors don't care about that. Nobody really cares about that. It's views is where you get paid. So 400,000 subscribers, 1,500 views. Nobody was watching because these are all kids coming over watching shorts. So I just it was frustrating, and I just sort of hoped that something would break through. And it took about 3 or 4 weeks. And then my video on Operation High Jump, which was Admiral Byrd going down to the hollow earth in Antarctica, that got 50,000 views in a day. And I was like, oh my God. I couldn't even believe it. I never even fathom that kind of number. And from there, it was a hockey stick through about 2023. I mean, things are growing, but kind of slow growing. But for 2003, my hockey stick was kind of like yours right now, is what it was. 300,000 subscribers in a month. People were watching. The videos were hitting 1 million in a month. I couldn't believe it.
It hit 1 million in a month?
The videos started to hit 1 million in a month.
Damn.
And it was, around then, at this point, I think Jen is the breadwinner. She was chief operating officer for Cyanide and Happiness, which a lot of your listeners will know. It's like a comic book cartoon company, a lot of fun. We were in Dallas at that point. And I remember I came downstairs and I had like sketched out this chart that's like, hey, if I get this many views, it could equal this amount of money per month. And if I can get to like 200,000 views, we can make like $5,000 a month and I could make a living. I remember she looked at it and she was like, that's a lot of views. I was like, I know, but she's like, oh, no, I support it. But it's a lot of views. So she was supportive, but hesitant, which is fair. But now I wish I kept that chart because we hit 1 million views in 16, 17 hours now.
Damn. 1 million views in 16 to 17 hours?
Yeah, I don't know. I have 2 personalities. One is constant anxiety and fear of losing. And the other is, I can't believe what's going on. I must be in a coma. I hope I don't wake up. Because I really don't understand it.
Yeah.
It's not false humility. I'm glad people are having fun. I'm glad that they respond to the content. Like everyone on the team is having a lot more fun than I am on this ride, being pitched by networks and stuff. Now it's crazy. But me, I'm still just the anxious guy trying to make a deadline, still doing half the editing and, staying up all night. I've got a camp shower in my office that sometimes I have to, if I'm there overnight, take a propane camp shower.
Nice.
Del Taco at 3 a.m.
I know there are a lot of choices out there when it comes to cell phone service, and it feels like new providers pop up every week. But Patriot Mobile stands out for a reason. They're a company built by people who actually share your values. And they've been doing this for over 12 years. No gimmicks, no agendas, just honest service and a commitment to doing right by their customers. They offer reliable, nationwide coverage using all 3 major networks, so you're not sacrificing quality. And when you switch, you're supporting a company that believes in faith, family, and freedom, values that matter. Don't just take my word for it. Ask the hundreds of thousands of Americans who've already made the switch to Patriot Mobile. Switching is easier than ever. Activate in minutes from the comfort of your own home. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Patriot Mobile's all U.S.-based support team is standing by to take care of you. Call 972-PATRIOT today or go to patriotmobile.com/SRS. Use promo code SRS for a free month of service. That's patriotmobile.com/SRS or call 972-PATRIOT and make the switch today. Summer's here, and if you're anything like me, you didn't spend the winter just sitting around. You stayed sharp and kept moving. And now it's time your gear caught up. And that's why I want to introduce you to Roka. I've been looking for eyewear that can handle any situation with performance and style. And let me tell you, these aren't your average shades. I've tested them in the real world from shooting to fishing to off-roading, and they hold up. They're lightweight, don't slide around on my face, and can take a hit without falling apart. And the best part, they look good. They're clean and modern, no frills here, just premium eyewear that performs without compromise. That's something that I respect, and that's also why every time I head out the door, I reach for my Roca shades. Roca's based in Austin, Texas, American designed, no cut corners. The optics are crystal clear, cut through glare, and the fit stays comfortable all day long. Need a prescription? They've got you covered with both sunglasses and eyeglasses. Not only does Roca have awesome shades, they also have these that protect you against blue light. I wear these every night when I'm winding down for the day, and I still got to look at my phone or my laptop or my iPad. It just helps you wind down and get ready for bed. They are a one-stop shop for eyewear that's built to handle whatever life throws at you. Roca is the real deal. Ready to upgrade your eyewear? Check them out for yourself at roca.com and use code SRS for 20% off site-wide at checkout. That's ROKA.com. What does the anxiety come from?
I've always had it, but well, I'm going to say something really embarrassing now, but I have to because it's my brand. So therapy never worked on me. Therapy just never worked on me. I'm always trying to like figure out what the therapist is getting at, or trying to solve it. So what I did was I created an AI therapist, and I did something maybe unwise, but we'll find out. I loaded a software program. I'm a tech guy. I used to be an engineer. I loaded an AI platform with all my emails, correspondence, everything I've ever written, text messages going back to 1999. All of it. And I asked it to create a personality profile. And it output this profile that had at 2 points reading it, I started to cry because it was like, now I understand. Now I understand. And this was just from me loading a computer with all this stuff, because the computer has no emotions, doesn't care. It's analyzing patterns, that's really all we are, right? So then I just started interacting with this AI, my AI therapist. And in the interaction, you get more and more drilled down into certain aspects of your personality and revealing things I had never known before, going back to issues with my father, mother, all that stuff. Apparently, I suffer from loss aversion, which is whenever I have something, I'm worried that it's going to be taken away. And that's kind of what it is. It's like, rather than enjoy success, instead I'm worried about losing it. And it's very frustrating. And I don't really know how to solve it. But at least I'm aware of some of my blind spots are getting illuminated a little bit.
I suffer from anxiety. I used to suffer from it really bad. In fact, at breakfast we were talking about it. I did a video on it. You've done stuff on it. And I was like, hey, this is why I feel this way. This is why I think my anxiety comes. And then I was like, I talked about the ways that the things that I utilize to power through it. And, starting this was this podcast. I mean, I'm not a conversationalist at all. I'm probably the most boring guy that you can, I don't do small talk.
You're a therapist.
I'm not good at it.
You're a therapist.
Well, I learned this from therapy because I went to three and a half years of therapy twice a week after I left the agency. And I realized when I was talking to my therapist, who is amazing, and that a lot of the things that were bothering me would just work themselves out just from me talking to her. And she might say 20 words in a 45-minute session. But just hearing me verbalize it, I'm like, oh yeah, that is kind of, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. But as far as like the fear of it all going, of losing, or, I mean, it's interesting. I was just talking about this yesterday with John Rich, and I interviewed Jim Caviezel, and about that movie he did. I think it's Sound of Freedom was maybe the last one. It was about child trafficking. And at some point in that conversation, he had brought up, you know, because we were talking about this at breakfast. I always, even when I built this, I built something that I could resell. I didn't want to, because I still think like that. I'm like, this could all be taken away in the snap of a finger. It's who knows who, piss somebody off. We talk about a lot of things here. We kick a lot rocks over, and I'm like, this could end at any moment. And I remember Jim said, he was talking about himself, about all his cars and just all these possessions that he has. And he said, but that could all be taken away at any moment in time. And I'm ready to give it all back because none of it actually matters. What matters is my kids and my wife and my friends. And I really took that in, and I was like, that's the only fucking way to live, man. Like, none of this shit really actually means anything.
It does not.
It's just shit.
It doesn't mean anything.
And so I think if you, for me, when I adapted that mindset, my anxiety went whoosh. It's like, and I didn't even really have that much, but that's just the way I think now. This is all, we got some cool things. I got some great artifacts in here. I've got some cool toys, but you know what? I mean, and there is an aspect too. I mean, when I think back to when things were much simpler and I wasn't running a business, and yeah, now the money's there and fame, which I hate, has come with it and all these things. But it's just, when you think back, it's like, man, remember when I was a SEAL and the only thing I had to worry about was going on an op and everything else was handled, and those were simpler times for me. And what I live in now is the most complicated life I've ever, the most complicated time in my life that I've ever lived. I mean, and so, I think, all right, well, if it does all end, then I go back to that, and maybe I buy a skid steer and start a land clearing company or something like that, and just live as simple as possible.
There's something attractive about that.
And when you think about that, it's not the end. It's just a different chapter if it does go away. And I think, I don't know, for me, I've prepared myself psychologically that because it will eventually, it will fizzle out. People will get bored. They'll hate me. I don't know what, I'll get canceled. Who knows? But it's just a moving into a new season of life, and who knows, man? Maybe that season will even be better than this one, and that really puts me at ease. Just talking about it puts me at ease.
We could probably cut this out if you don't want to talk about it, but you mentioned that you were starting a network.
Mm-hmm.
That's more than hedging a bet. I mean, that's helping others. That's creating a legacy. That's creating a business in a situation that if your show did take a hit, which I don't anticipate it will, you're absolutely on fire. I think you're aware of that. But by building a network, then you have this infrastructure where you're helping other people succeed. And then maybe this isn't that important.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, we don't know. I'm not going to cut any of this. I mean, I think about that all the time. The one thing that I don't really have many regrets, but maybe I don't know if it's a regret because I've helped so many people. But personal stuff, you know what I mean? Like I said, when I started this, it wasn't even about me. It still isn't about me. But now I have a team that relies on the business and anyways, where was I going with this?
We're just talking about things that could end at any minute.
Yeah. Where was I going with this? Damn it. Been blown up too many times. What were we going after?
We were talking about anxiety, and how you're managing it.
Yeah. I was always a little upset with myself because I didn't build something that I could sell. Meaning, this isn't something that can get passed down to my kids.
No.
This isn't something that my wife can take over. This isn't something that if I get sick or die or get, I can't move around. Tragedy happens. This isn't something that I can hand to my team and say, run this, and that always bothered me is, man, there isn't a way out of this. I didn't build a legacy thing that I can pass down to future generations of my family or my team or whoever. But rather than sit there and whine and bitch about it all the time, we were talking about this at breakfast. I mean, now I'm building companies, and I'm building companies that I'm going to advertise here, that I'm going to sell, or I'm going to pass it down, to my son and my daughter, my wife. And so,
have you tried sesh nicotine? It's really good. It's really good.
You want to have a sesh?
I have it.
But so I started, instead of whining and complaining about it, and I didn't have any time, to start something because of the show and all the stuff that goes into this. We both know plenty about that. I started focusing my energy on building new companies, and instead of having to rely on advertisers all the time, I'll build my own companies, advertise those companies. And so now we're in the process. By the end of this year, we'll have launched 3 new companies plus a network. So I guess technically 4 companies. And I think people put limitations on themselves, and yeah, there's limitations for sports and all these things. But when you find what you're good at, there are no limitations.
There aren't.
Nothing can get in my way.
If you love it, if you find the thing, if you love it and you're good at it, the difference between a career and a vocation was always kind of confusing to me until I started doing this and realized that vocation, that word comes from vocal. It's a calling. It's not a job. It's not a career. So even before the channel was very successful, I felt like I'm meant to do this. Connecting with people, entertaining people, having fun. And somehow it became a sort of a family show. I don't know why 7-year-olds are learning about Agent Orange, but they are. I have 9-year-olds sending me videos about audit the Fed and taxes or theft. Which is glorious. But those are the things that give me a lot of fuel, because what I'm doing is not really that important, but I'm bending the universe a little bit in my direction.
I think what you're doing is very important. And here's why. Because I think that not only the U.S., but the world as a whole has lost the ability to critical think. And with your episodes, I mean, you bring in all the information, all the conspiracies, all the points of views, and it forces people to think critically. And then at the end, you save your opinion or how you think until the end. And I think it's very important because it in a way, it's a critical thinking exercise.
It is.
In a world where nobody does that anymore. Everybody is told how to think through mainstream media, through social media, through Hollywood, through all of that. I actually just did a documentary on this. It's called Cognitive Warfare, and they inject and project what they want you to see, how they want you to think. And you have
I'm going to do an episode on that. That's on your documentary. That sounds interesting. I try not to inject my opinion too much in it. I try to say, here's all the stuff I found out. If there are things that are definitely debunked, I will say so, like this didn't happen. But this, I can't really debunk this part. You decide. Mm-hmm. I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm not a pundit. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I enjoy the stories. Mm-hmm. And that's why the format is the first 2/3 of the episode. I just tell it like it's true, just so you can have the experience of, like, I know this channel, I know eventually he's going to say, but is it true? But this one looks like this one could be real. and that's what I'm trying to capture is, I get people that are angry at me for debunking their favorite stories. And it's like, don't you want to know what really? Right?
I was angry when I watched the moon landing one. I was like, what? He thinks we landed on the moon?
The moon I go back and forth with. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if men walked on the moon. I think that we probably landed on the moon, but I'm not sure men walked on the moon. But that's a tough one.
Yeah, we're going to dive into that in a minute. I want to go into, I mean, you had mentioned, we were talking about anxiety still, and you had mentioned maybe a new show segment or something, bringing the people that you utilize for your research on the topics that you discuss in, and we were talking about being a conversationalist. And you know what I think is interesting is, I mean, you're a commentator. Are you talking to a camera, or is somebody behind that camera?
No, I'm talking to a teleprompter. I'm reading.
Okay. I can't do that stuff. I cannot talk to a camera. We've tried to get me to do some commentary stuff. I can't do it. It's talking to, I used to put paper targets. I used to do this. I used to do this series called Hard Truths. And, one of the guys that have been with me the longest would drive in, and I'd make him sit across from me just to talk to him, just so I'm talking to somebody. And if he couldn't make it, then I would set a paper target in the chair and I would talk to the paper target, because I cannot look at a camera and just go. And, you know, starting the podcast, like I'd mentioned, I'm not a conversationalist. At least I definitely wasn't at the time. And so that's where I just took my therapy, and I was like, just listen, just don't interject. Don't try to relate. Don't do any of that stuff. Just be a sponge to whatever's coming out of the person across from you, and maybe guide the conversation. And what I learned is, if you can be comfortable in silence, most people cannot be comfortable in silence. They will fill the room. They will fill the room because they feel awkward, and you won't have to. And that's actually one of the first things that I loved about my wife, is that we could just sit there and not talk and be totally comfortable. And I was like, man, there's like nobody I can do this with. Everybody has to talk all the time. So, you know, and I think you'll find that when you start doing your interviews is they'll fill the silence. You won't have to.
I could feel it sitting here when we get a little quiet. Like, I feel like maybe I talk now, but but we had breakfast, so I know, you know, that technique, and I'm trying to learn these things. It was something that I just filed away, as you said, don't try to be relatable. That's a really interesting point. Is don't try to be relatable, because it's, you're not trying to relate to the guest. You're just trying to have a conversation. You don't have to know anything about it. Whether I'm talking to a physicist or a ghost hunter, who cares? Just tell me what you feel.
And you're already interested in the topic.
Yes.
And so I think, you know, here we go. Now I'm going to relate to you after I just said don't relate to anybody. But, you know, I only take interviews where I'm interested in the subject matter. And so it's a genuine curiosity. And we've turned down a lot of big names. I get scared. I get intimidated to interview athletes because I'm not into sports, you know, but I try it because I want to challenge myself. But we'll get big names that want to come on the show, and I'm like, man, I don't know what to talk about with this person. I'm not interested. I know this would be great for the channel. I know it would be great for the show. It would probably be huge numbers. But I'm just going to be sitting there because I'm not interested in anything this person has ever done. So we're going to pass.
Wow.
You know, and it's served me well, you know, and in all of the biggest interviews I've ever done, it's not Trump, it's not Gavin Newsom, it's not these ginormous names that everybody knows. The biggest stories are the ones of everyday people who are doing extraordinary things, who never get recognition, or military, special ops, conventional guys that have done the unfathomable. And those are the stories that my audience really resonate with the most. I mean, the biggest interview I ever did was Ryan Montgomery. He was a hacker who now tracks down pedophiles, and he was the most. He probably suffered from the most. He had the most anxiety about coming on the show of anybody ever, and made him comfortable. It's the biggest interview we've ever done. It's at like almost 10 million views, and when you get all the clips and shorts and all that stuff, it's hundreds of millions of views.
Why was he nervous?
He's a tech guy. You know,
Yeah.
one thing about
Weird.
tech guys is,
I like to be in a small space alone with a machine.
yep,
It's my comfort zone.
very unsure of himself, doesn't like being around people, smacked it out of the park. And so I don't know. I hope maybe that helps you a little bit.
It does.
Gives you some confidence in that. And the questions will come naturally when you're just feeding your curiosity.
I think that's the key. Like when you just a couple of days ago, you had that CEO of the asteroid mining company. I watched all of that because you don't see him anywhere. But that was a fascinating. I'm interested in all of those things. I looked at the chapters. I'm like, oh, I guess I have to watch all of this because I like all that stuff. But you don't see him anywhere.
Mm-mm.
So that kind of stuff. You know, those are the sorts of people that I reach out to for my show. So that it doesn't matter if he's famous or not. I know that's going to be an interesting dude to talk to.
I hope you do it. I hope
The
you do it.
studio's all done. We're just waiting for me to have the balls.
You've got them. Just do it, man. Just do it. And then the other thing that we both know is, you know, the audience loves to watch the progression of a channel, you know, and so you're introducing something new and you're going to have to develop it, and you're taking your audience on the journey with you. They're going to coach you. They're going to critique you, and they're going to wish the best for you, you know, and take that in.
You know, that's interesting that you say that because starting the channel is watching some consultant say, you just got to start. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about your gear, your lighting. Get your phone and just start doing episodes. You're going to hate your first 20 episodes. And I remember going, I'm not going to hate my friend. I'm going to be fine. And now I just cringe at every, like episode 1 through 70. It's like, how did anyone watch this? It's terrible. But the audience does respond to that. They go back and watch that old stuff saying, you've come a long way, brother.
Yeah, man.
I take it as a compliment, and that's why I don't delete any of those old episodes. Yeah, and so I'd love to delete a few of them, but it feels dishonest. Like a whole episode where I'm just completely out of focus. The focus is just on the bulletin board, so you can't even see me. But I'm just leaving it up there.
Do you feel, I mean, you're a truth teller, and so I'm curious, do you feel a responsibility that a responsibility comes with truth telling?
I think I'm more of a storyteller, and maybe that's a way for me to rationalize it because I don't want to have the responsibility. I don't want any power. I don't want it to be a leader. I don't want to be any of that stuff. I just want to entertain people with fun stories, and just get them thinking differently, or just cheer them up if they're having a bad day. My only responsibility, I feel, is if I do find a piece of a story that's not that well known, and even if I cover something that's been covered a lot, I don't stop researching until I'm pretty convinced I can bring something new. Like episodes like crop circles or even the moon landing. It's like people keep asking me to do these episodes. These have been done since the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
But they want it, so I'll do it. But I won't stop researching until I find those nuggets that entertain me and go, oh, I didn't know that. So I know the audience won't. So I think I feel responsibility there. I got to find something new that for a story that's maybe known. And I don't hold back if I find something ugly. I just say it. Like this is, I'm reminded of the Montauk Project episode, which is the the Montauk Project this is like a time travel urban legend about, and Stranger Things is based on it. Out in Long Island, these experiments done out in Camp Hero, you'd sit in a chair and you'd focus your psychic energy and travel through time, all this stuff. This is a military project, of course. And it was all based on a book and a series of books by Preston Nichols. So I'm researching, I'm doing the episode, and I'm loving it because I read Preston Nichols' books when they came out, after hearing about them on Art Bell. I'm doing the episode, it's coming along fine, and then I find out that Preston Nichols was maybe inappropriate with a lot of young men. So at some point in the episode, it started to get a little dark, and I actually stopped in the episode and I said, look, I know you have families watching. If you have kids watching, it's time to send them away. And I said, seriously, because I'm going to tell you the truth about this story. And then I told the truth about what I learned about Preston Nichols. It's all alleged, but I said, here's what I found, and it's ugly. And kind of ruins the story. It certainly ruined the magic for me, but I felt a responsibility. I don't know.
It's good you did that.
I think it is. It felt like the right thing to do at the time. But I don't know if that's what the audience wanted. It's hard to tell. But I had to say what was going on. And this was someone that I really respected. Too bad.
Where did the hecklefish come from?
I wanted a sidekick. I needed a sidekick. Because hecklefish is... those are available on the Wi-Fi store, by the way. I'm not here to plug. I think we're sold out anyways. I needed a sidekick because I knew that when I would talk about the weird topics and the conspiracy topics, you kind of need a foil. I need someone to lighten the mood when it gets dark. He'll just come in he'll just start singing a song or something and just like I'll ruin my train of thought. But it just lets the audience go, it's just, we're not taking it too seriously. All right, yeah, we're talking about the CIA's throwing people out of the window. All right, that's the story. All right, it happened. It's for sure, but we can have a little fun along the way. But also, he serves as the voice of the audience. So if I'm saying something totally outrageous, I know that people watching are going to be going, "What are you talking about?" So if I'm talking about quantum mechanics or quantum theory, he will hop in and call me Poindexter and a nerd or whatever. And say, some of us actually went to our prom. We didn't stay home and write programs. So can you explain, please, what the double slit experiment is? He serves as the stand-in for the audience and a pressure release valve.
Genius.
It was Jen's idea. I said, I need a sidekick to just sit there. And she said, why don't you have a goldfish in a bowl? I was like, that's a good idea.
Damn. When in the journey did he come? Was he born?
Day one.
Day one.
Day one. And he's come a long way too. He's definitely had some face work done over the years. I guess the success. He's got a good Botox guy because he was janky, and his voice changed a little bit over time. We kind of settled into our rhythm.
Very cool.
I hope people don't get sick of it because, in rewatching my episodes to just refresh myself to come in here, it was just so hard to do. I'm watching. I'm like, I've been doing the same thing for like 4 years, the same format, the same. So I hope it continues to resonate.
It works, though.
I try to let it evolve in small ways, production value and music and sound and all of that, but it's still basically the same format.
I think I'm with you. I'm always looking for ways to improve the show, bring it to the next level. And I got to the point where we were just chasing our tails. It was, well, let's redo the thumbnails. Let's do this. Let's change the intro. Let's take this out. Let's put this in. And it just got to the point where I was like, man, these are small, minute moves. And I mean, we did just upgrade to the new studio, third guest here. But
this is bananas, by the way.
Thank you.
You should do a backstage tour of this facility.
I probably will.
It's pretty crazy.
But But what I did, is when I realized, all right, we're chasing our tail here. The show is great. It's got great visuals, and I set it up that way from the very beginning. And and so what I did is I started refocusing that energy into building new things because I mean I think I'm definitely a creative. You seem like a creative as well, and so I just took I didn't know where to put my creativity. And so I started focusing on these businesses, that we're going to launch before the end of the year. And those have become my new creative outlet because it just got to the point I was like, I don't know how to improve what I have. And I love what I have, but it's not feeding that creative outlet that I need and crave. And so I refocused that into these other businesses and the design of the studio and the shooting range and everything that we have here. That was my creative outlet for about a year, building this and making the best experience for the guests, for myself, for my team. And then once that was designed, then I started moving into the business stuff, and that's my new creative outlet.
Do you think that focusing on the minutia like you did, because I've gone through that, do you think that was trying to assuage some anxiety at the time?
Probably.
Because it is for me.
Myself, my team, we run 1,000 miles an hour all the time.
Everyone here is amazing and really friendly, but I was talking about this with Jeremy, who's incredible. What a find. It's a tight ship here. Like, you're hitting your marks and go take the photo and do all this stuff. There's a system in place. As family oriented and as fun as it is, I mean, it's super fun. Shooting a Winchester is a highlight of my month, but you're very organized here. People compliment me on my studio when they come by. They're like, I've never seen anything like this, and I'm in here like, oh my goodness, I'm doing everything wrong. I've got so much more to do.
Dude, you are doing everything right.
If you saw my studio, you'd be like, yeah, grab a clipboard. We got some work, like you help me with my grip. You can help me with my lighting as well.
Right on, right on. But, well, let's move in. I want to talk about the moon landing. That was the first. So my editor, who you met, Darren, knows all about this stuff. And he's the one that got me interested in it. And so I started looking things up on the internet and came across you. And I was like, this is by far the best explanation I've ever heard. It's all in there. At least I think it's all in there. And so I want to dive in there. What got you interested in the moon landing?
That was an episode that people just demanded. I didn't want to do it because everyone's done the moon landing. And are you talking about the Stanley Kubrick one? Because I've done a few moon videos. I think I have a whole compilation.
I probably watched all of them, but I know the Stanley Kubrick thing was in there, how the shadows don't align. But let's go into it. I want to hear all of it.
So I debunked a lot of that moon landing stuff. A lot of that episode is based on Bart Sibrel's. Bart Sibrel, it had a documentary quite a while ago, maybe 20 years. A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, I think is the name of it. And if you're into the moon stuff, that's the documentary to watch. And Bart's someone who I trade email with, who I told him, I'm as soon as I'm ready, I got to have you in here because he knows everything about it. But I debunked a lot of his stuff in the documentary, but I couldn't debunk all of it. There were some weird things about, when you see the astronauts and it looks like there's wires, reflections off the wires. It's hard to explain that. I tried to. I said, the way that piece of equipment is, it could be this, but I agree it looks weird. And the way the astronauts fall doesn't look natural, but it's 1/6 gravity. It could be weird. I try to be open-minded to all of it. It's an episode that still confounds me. I go back and forth depending on who I talk to about whether it really happened. And I think the percentage of Americans who don't believe that we went to the moon, it's just rising every year. I hope I have nothing to do with that.
I'm sure you have something to do with that.
But they lost the tapes, all the original tapes of the moon landing. What you watch when Neil Armstrong climbs off the LEM, One Small Step for Man, that's not a direct feed from anything. That was projected on a wall in NASA, and the networks aimed their camera at the wall to get like this projection. And the networks were like, "Hey, can we just get the direct feed? Because that would be a lot better." And they're like, "No, we're going to do it this way." And then they lost all those tapes. They lost the telemetry. And when asked, why don't we go back? NASA said, well, we can't replicate that technology. It's too difficult.
Yeah, isn't there like some I don't know what you call it. We can't get past a certain point, supposedly. And they said I think it was your episode. They're like, we lost the technology. It's like you lost the technology to get us to the moon. You just happened to lose it.
Nobody wrote.
Where did it go?
They just lost it. You might be talking about the Van Allen radiation belt.
That's it.
Right, which is high velocity particles. And it's this energetic field that surrounds the Earth and is very dangerous. And if you're aware of something called the South Atlantic anomaly, it's this part of our geomagnetic field that is just, it's burning a hole through it. If you look at it on like an electromagnetic map, it's just a big hole. It's getting bigger, and now it's starting to branch off into a second one, and nobody knows why that's happening. And geomagnetism and the pole shifts and all that, I can go down that rabbit hole too, because all that stuff terrifies me.
Do it.
Solar radiation and the grid going down, all that stuff terrifies me. So the Van Allen radiation belts, that you have NASA astronauts saying, oh, we think we found a way now that we can get out of, high Earth orbit, that we can finally get past the Van Allen radiation belts. It's like, we already did that, man, didn't we? Didn't we do that 17 times or whatever? But they forgot. They lost it. Can't replicate it.
Unbelievable.
I don't buy it.
I don't buy it either.
So just let us know what's going on.
On top of that, there was a space race or a race to the moon between us and Russia during the Cold War, right?
There was. And Russia was first to everything. We were behind on everything. Russia has first, Sputnik goes up, Sputnik 2 goes, so first man-made satellite in orbit, first man in orbit, first animal in orbit, first woman in orbit, first spacewalk, first geostationary satellites, all first. And we're falling behind, and you can hear JFK giving speeches, and they're pressing him on it. And like the Saturn program's not going well, and the rockets are blowing up on the launch pads. And he's saying, like, no matter how much money we throw at it, we're going to be second. We're going to be second. You can hear him talking about it. And then suddenly, 1969, we're there. We surpass all of it. We surpass all of the Soviets' accomplishments, and we go and we land on the moon. Okay. It seemed like we took a great leap forward there, but there's really no explanation for it.
Did we? Yeah.
Well, where do you stand on it?
I'm like you. I go back and forth. I wonder what I would think had we not been through COVID and all these other things, Epstein and all these other things that keep coming out that destroy any trust in any government institution there is.
Every COVID conspiracy that I talked about just came true. But, to me, it was always obvious. And the big problem with that is, you were vocal as well, and I was very nervous about my opinions on COVID, but I hope that I didn't just get lucky. Those of us that were doubting and those that thought it was just kind of a power grab, I hope we didn't just get lucky, because when the next pandemic comes and they want to do lockdowns, Americans are not going to do it. Even like the middle of the road people are going to be like, I can't do that again. I can't put my kids on Zoom again. I'm not doing it. And if it's a real pandemic like the Spanish flu or something, we're going to be in trouble.
Or Ebola. Something serious, man.
So that's chickens coming home to roost when you're so secret, when there's such a lack of transparency, when it's so corrupt. I understand that there needs to be some secrecy. Yeah, I attack FBI, CIA, and NSA all the time, but I still want them there. I still want them to have the tools that they need to do their jobs. I want America to be the most powerful country on the planet. I want us to have the best military in the world. I just don't want us to use it that often. But overall, I want transparency in what we're doing. And we don't have any of that.
Not one bit.
So then there's going to be no trust.
Now, if those things hadn't have happened, it's interesting because I don't know how much that affected my psyche. You know what I mean? And now it's like anything. It gets to the point where it's like anything that is put out, it's like, that's a distraction. That's bullshit. That didn't happen. There's no way. That definitely happened, and you're saying it didn't, Epstein. And then shit. Half of Trump's. It appeared to me there was a lot of chatter about releasing the Epstein files and all this other shit. And then we get in there and it's like everybody's beating the same damn drum. Oh, no, look over here. Oh, Russiagate. And it's like,
yes,
right. Because we're diving into Russiagate when the entire American population, both the right and the left, are screaming, release the Epstein files. But let's concentrate on this.
On Russiagate.
Let's concentrate on this. Right.
And when we're not, for 2 years I've been saying this and I get a lot of heat from it. We're not going to get the list. There's no list. We're not going to get it. Everyone wants to talk about it, that it's some sex trafficking ring. That's part of it. It's a blackmail operation. It's a money washing operation for the intelligence community. To connect the dots doesn't take any effort at all. I never talk about Mossad on my show because I'm not stupid, but you can connect all these agencies to all this. Just follow the money. Somehow Epstein is connected to Iran-Contra. Just follow the money.
How's he connected to Iran-Contra?
When I think he was an advisor for Adnan Khashoggi back in the 80s, who was it's like an arms dealer / asset, wealthy family / could move a lot of weapons around and a lot of cash around. And I'm going to get a lot of things wrong today. So my job is not to get everything right. My job is to get you thinking and go find out. So they needed to get cash and weapons. We need to get weapons to Iran, which is illegal. Congress told them, no. They passed the law, and they just did it anyway. And we got to get cash to the Congress. And we have to do it without Congress knowing, which isn't an ideal way to run a democracy. But so you need middlemen. And Khashoggi is known as a middleman for the IC, and Epstein seems to be. And it's not like I'm the first to talk about this. I've heard people who've met him, people like Eric Weinstein, who I like, tells his story about meeting Epstein and walked out of there feeling like I don't think he's ever said it publicly that he felt like Epstein was part of the IC, but he said he felt like he was a manufactured personality. And he kind of hinted at there was someone kind of pulling his strings, kind of creating this facade.
Interesting.
Because here's a guy who I don't think he had a college degree, and he ends up teaching math at age 20 at a wealthy school, and just suddenly skyrockets through the finance game. It doesn't add up. So we're not going to learn because it would wreck all kinds of things.
No matter they botched this so bad. They had all the influencer types up at the White House at the very beginning, holding up the binders. Oh, we got it.
I don't know whose idea that was, but that was such a disservice.
What were they thinking? I mean, and then the distractions and diversions that have come up since. It's like, you guys have botched this so bad, no matter what comes out, unless it is aligned with the wildest conspiracy you've ever heard of, nobody's going to believe it.
Not going to believe it.
Nobody's going to believe it.
There was no tape, but then there was a tape, or then there was a tape, but only Bill Barr saw the tape. Bill Barr's father, of course, is involved with Epstein and Ghislaine.
Oh, go figure.
Go figure. But now there is a tape, but there's some minutes missing, which is a story we hear over and over, right? There's always minutes missing. Always the minutes are missing. So I don't know. So now we're at the point where we don't trust anybody. And I don't follow it close enough Like I talk about political issues a lot, but I'm not ideological. So just a quick sidetrack. So I get attacked quite a bit for being far left and far right, and for being ideological. And I keep saying I'm political, but I'm not ideological. Politics to me is governments and how they interact with society. That's what I'm interested in. So I did this experiment. The three major AI platforms, so Google Gemini, Anthropic Claude, and OpenAI ChatGPT. I sent the same question in. Analyze all the Y-Files episodes, everything that AJ Gentile's ever said publicly on every podcast, everything he's ever written that's been published. Analyze all that and tell me, is he coming at these issues from the left or the right? All the AI platforms, and if you're listening to this, you do it yourself, says there is no left or right bias in anything that I'm saying. I'm focused on truth, facts, research. I'm clearly anti-government, pro-transparency, anti-corruption, and that is where I come from. So when I talk about Epstein, I'm going to get attacked from different sides. I don't know where is it a left-right issue? To me, it's not. It's a transparency corruption issue. You shouldn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican, which are fake now anyway. So I don't know. I could be saying controversial things today to one side or the other. I just don't know which side until I get home.
Yeah, the media has a big say in that. I got painted as this ultra right MAGA podcaster, and I'm not. I'm very middle of the road, and so I had to work my way out of that, and we're doing it. But yeah, America's just become so tribalized, man. And it goes back to critical thinking. Nobody seems to have the fortitude to critical think anymore. And so if you say anything against one party or another, no matter if it's true, I mean, in everything that we do, we try to, our best to bring truth. And it's like, man, like, you're not listening. You're not listening. Like, this is a fault of this specific party. And you have wrapped your entire identity up into this shit. And you're not fucking listening.
That's the problem, is when your identity is your ideology, now you have a problem. Now you've created a bubble and you've got to protect that. So you can't hear anything that goes against your identity. Your identity is the party. That's a bad situation. Mm-hmm. I say to my audience, if you're on the left and you think the right is the problem, or you're on the right and you think the left is the problem, you're the problem, because that is all theater. This is just to keep us spinning our wheels. We should, instead of worrying about party politics, because the establishment on the Republicans and the establishment Democrats want the same thing anyway. They want big government, war, and all of that stuff. But most of us don't want that stuff. Most of us are kind of in the middle of things. I don't identify with either party. I'm pro-troops, pro-military, but anti-war. Mm-hmm. I'm pro-cop, very pro-law enforcement, but I think we need reform. So I don't think I'm that unusual. I don't think those are controversial things. Pro-choice, pro-life, that's between you and God. I'm not involved in that. I'm very libertarian in all those things. And I think we need to get away from the tribalism and start to look at individual issues and individual people and call out the corruption when we see it. I don't know how many politicians you've interviewed, but in my career, I worked as a contractor in the engineering side in politics for almost 20 years, from local villages all the way up to having clients in Congress, and met all these politicians, famous ones, name brand clients. These are just people. They're flawed. They're ambitious. Can't really be trusted, but they're all the same. And we worked with both parties, and you'd have these meetings with Republicans and Democrats. It's just the same person. They just want to get reelected. They're going to say whatever they got to say to the base, get reelected. And I just feel like it's a smokescreen.
WWE wrestling.
That's what it is.
What it is.
What it is. And our system, it's such a shame because our system does not encourage the best and brightest to get involved. I'd never run for office. You said they tried to recruit you? Mm-hmm. No. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got a wife and kids.
I think that's how they control you. I think that's also why we're seeing a lot of young, weak people get into office, is because they're propped up and they know they're going to be very easy to control.
Yes.
That's what I think. And it's just through doing this, I see how easy it could be to fall into certain traps, take a favor from somebody that seems like, oh, I just want to help you. Like, what are you, my fucking parent? No, I know what this is. You're going to do this. And then 6 months later, you're going to start asking me for favors and dangle that shit in front of my face. No, not doing it.
Right. And if you don't do it, we'll just primer you or smear you. Or nowadays, we'll just lock you up. We'll just raid your wife's underwear drawer. We'll just turn the FBI on you.
Yep. Well, I want to talk about the hollow moon.
Okay.
Is the moon hollow?
Man.
I've not dug into this. I had a side
weird.
Conversation with Randall Carlson once, and he's the one that brought it up. I have not seen this episode of yours.
It's a fun one. That was Gino, my brother, said, you got to do this one. And it's like, hollow moon, that is nonsense. And then I'm researching the episode, and I just start to realize that there's a lot of weird stuff about the moon. Then by the time I was done with the episode, I was convinced that it was hollow. But there's a lot of weird things that have happened with the moon. Like, first of all, the moon is too big to be here. It's just too big. We've never found another system in our solar system or any other that has this giant moon right next to us like this. This is totally unique. We haven't found a moon that has such a perfect orbit like this, that also the same side faces us all the way. We're a snowflake with this, totally unique. So that's strange.
No shit, I didn't realize that.
No, we haven't found it anywhere.
Only moon that we know of that doesn't rotate.
No, there are a few moons that are tidally locked like that.
Okay,
But it's rare. But when you stack up all these coincidences, it starts to paint a picture like the moon is weird. A lot of people will point to the fact that the moon during the eclipse is like the perfect size to block out the sun, because it's like a 400-to-1 ratio. That's fair, but the moon at one point was a lot closer to the Earth, and it's drifting away. So at some point, it's not going to be perfect anymore. But the moon, the far side the crust is different, older, and much thicker, and fewer impacts are on the far side that are on the near side. When you think it would be the opposite, because that's kind of like should be grabbing things as they come in, but instead there's not as many impacts on that side. When during one of the Apollo missions, as a seismic test, they crashed one of the rockets into the moon just to take readings, seismograph readings, to see what was going on there. And the phrase is, the moon rang like a bell for over an hour. So if you set off like seismic charges here to measure sound waves that go through the Earth, as they go through the Earth, they slow down as they go through all this dense matter and then through the mantle and the core. Like, it just slows down. The moon, they don't do that. The sound waves sped up and started to bounce all around in there and started to like reverberate for a long time. And no one could really explain that. Now, the prevailing theory, the mainstream theory, is that the moon is a lot less dense than the Earth because it was created from the Earth's crust and the upper mantle, which is less dense, which is why the moon is less dense. So the interior has maybe some hollow spaces, or it's just it's not quite as dense. That's why. Okay, but the sound waves bounced around for a long time. There was a long time.
This is true.
This is true.
What hit it again?
They dropped one of the rocket boosters. They just crashed it in there. But they did seismograph readings in subsequent missions there, where they actually drop in like explosives, control explosives, and they just take the readings and see what happens to the sound waves. It's a normal scientific thing to do. I think they were just surprised. There's been a couple of NASA scientists who've even said it would make a lot more sense that the moon wasn't here than the fact that it is, because there's so many strange things about it. And we see light on the moon all the time. They're called it's transient lunar phenomena. We just see these just light flashes on the moon all the time. And if you have binoculars, you can even see this. In one of the moon craters, I think it's the Aristarchus crater, there's this blue glowing light that just appears from time to time and then goes away, and then it appears again. They call it the blue gem.
What?
And you can see it. So what's causing the light up there? Well, mainstream scientists will say, well, you're seeing flashes because the moon it's a lot like glass. It's very glassy and reflective, so you're seeing that. But we'll see light just like go across. You'll just see light zip across. And then what's the blue light in that same crater that we've been seeing since 17th century? It's Aristarchus or Aristarchus crater, I think is how you say it. Blue light. What is that? And now they're seeing, just very recently, like this year, these swirls of light and gases happening on the moon, different places. They don't understand it. There was one point where the moon doesn't really have an atmosphere. It has a tiny one, doesn't really have one. But for a little while it did. There was just all this water vapor in the air on the moon that came from somewhere and then just disappeared. So I don't know what that is. And then you've had people who have seen pictures, like I've talked about Carl Wolf, who was U.S. Air Force, and he was like a technician. He basically the level is a copy repairman, and he's called in to fix some imaging equipment at NASA or Air Force, wherever. And he walks in there, and he's like an airman, and he sees another young guy, and he's like, "Oh, Carl, you got to see this." And Carl looks, he's like, "What am I looking at?" He's like, "This is the backside of the moon. There's like cities there and stuff. There's mushroom-shaped things and towers and highways and all this stuff." Carl's like, "This is amazing. I can't believe it." And Carl said he went home. He told his wife, and he said he was watching the news, waiting for this to show up on the news, but it never did. And you could see those photos allegedly, and I used them in one of my episodes. And it looks like a civilization on the far side of the moon. Carl, unfortunately, was met with an untimely death. He got hit by a car when he was riding his bike. So we don't know much more from Carl, but he was part of the 2000. So much.
That's crazy.
So much. When I did the Killer Patents episode, I ended it with all the free energy inventors that,
like the hydrogen car guy.
He said he was poisoned. He said he's having like lunch with investors to like finally take his car ran on water. This is Stanley Meyer, and he's not feeling well, and he runs outside. He's like throwing up in the street, and his brother was his partner, and his brother said, "What's going on?" He's like, "I was poisoned," and then he dies, and that was the end of it. No more water car. Then we just have this kid who created plastiline. He like took plastic and created fuel out of it, and then he disappeared for a little while. I think he's back. So it could be a conspiracy, but I'm going to look into him. But a lot of these inventors, so my favorite one is Sparky Sweet, who's worth looking into, because he has video of all this stuff like in his workshop, and you see he's got voltmeters and stuff, and all this energy is created, and he takes his camera around. He's like, "Look, nothing is plugged in, nothing is plugged in," and it caught the attention of someone in military somewhere who said, I want to be your partner, and we'll take this wide or whatever. And he worked with this guy for a while, and then at some point, black van shows up, a couple of guys in suits have a conversation with Sparky and his wife. They go away, and then he has a heart attack. And that's really the end of it. All his research was taken, everything was seized, and that's how it works.
But that's what happened with Nikola Tesla too, right? Did they seized all his like stuff, 80 boxes of research?
So when he died, it wasn't the FBI at the time, although the FBI was there. It was like the Office of Alien Property or something, whatever agency's in charge of foreigners. He died, and within hours, they were in his room. This is at the New Yorker Hotel. And they seized 80 boxes of his research, all kind of research plans. And because it's national security. And they held on to it for months and months. And they finally returned his property to his nephew, but 20 boxes were missing. So in those boxes, allegedly, and this falls under Project Nick, is Tesla's research into direct energy weapons, to DWs, which was very hot with military at the time, with DARPA and all of that. We still don't know what's happened to those boxes, but we do know that they were researching things based on Tesla's research. And the the formula, the sort of the architecture for the HARP project up in Alaska, a lot of that comes from Tesla's research. And it took me quite a while to connect the dots, but you will find Tesla's missing work suddenly shows up in patents from this guy somewhere in Alaska. I forget his name. And out of the blue, he lands a contract with the DOD for a lot of money, and they build a facility in Fairbanks, Alaska. And it's just an array of antennas in a small building, and it cost a fortune. Like, where'd the money go? Cost a fortune. And what it does is it ionizes and creates plasma in the atmosphere. And they say we use this to test the atmosphere. But it could also be used for all kinds of processes. What Tesla wanted to do was create free energy by exciting the ionosphere. That was what he was doing with Wardenclyffe Tower. But he needed funding to do that, and he couldn't get any funding. J.P. Morgan was his patron, and he told J.P. Morgan, do you see it in his letter? I need a sum of money. He needed like $200,000 to get this project going. And J.P. Morgan said, well, you're building wireless communication. What do you need all this money for? And Tesla's like, no. Wireless communication, I got that. We're going to do wireless energy. We're going to do wireless free energy for everyone on the planet can just tap into this and just get free electricity. And J.P. Morgan says, well, how do you put a meter on that? J.P. Morgan owned copper mines that made copper wire. He owned rubber farms all over the world that made insulation for the wire. He owned lumber mills and forests that created poles for wire. He owned coal factories. He owned machine shops that created generators for electricity. And he owned railroads that brought all this stuff around the country. Free energy shuts that whole business down. We don't need any of that. Carnegie, we don't need any of that. The Mellon family, we don't need you guys anymore. It's just free. Imagine what the world would be like if energy was just free.
That's the golden age.
Yeah, we're not going to live to see it.
Nope. Wow.
So I think I went off on a few tangents, but
have you ever looked into the flat Earth stuff?
I have. I'm not a flat earther.
Me neither.
I don't even want to do an episode on it because to me it's so ridiculous. But people do request it. And me calling it ridiculous, I'm going to get a lot of hate for it, but I can handle the hate from the flat earthers. That's fine. But I do like the theory. Like on YouTube, you're not going to find much flat Earth stuff. That is suppressed. But if you go land on Rumble and search flat Earth,
why do you think they suppress it?
There's some stuff we'd have to talk about off air, but there are subjects that YouTube will just not allow you to discuss. So I can't say specifically because I made a promise to someone to not tell. But if you look at a couple of my demonetized videos, you'll see that they're kind of softball. Like, why is this demonetized? Go look at those. Those are no topics that I didn't know until it was too late. I was like, why is this demonetized? Like, I can't talk about that. I'm like, everything's true in here. I debunk most of it. I can't even talk about it at all, true or not. So flat Earth, they don't like that one. But if you go on Rumble and spend like 2, 3, 4 hours just watching those videos, you walk away like, oh, it could be.
There's some compelling stuff.
It's good stuff.
There is some compelling arguments.
Yeah.
I will say
the Antarctica Wall. He's got a point.
Damn. What do you think? So back to Nikola Tesla. What do you think about the pyramids?
Oh,
what were they?
So gun to my head, I think they were used to generate energy. I think there's a lot of evidence for it. For people interested in it, they can look into Christopher Dunn's work. He's done the research, the definitive research on the pyramid power plant theory. Tesla was fascinated by the pyramids, not so much for energy, but for how they were constructed, how they're constructed to true north and all of that. He was fascinated by the engineering of it. But his free energy device, a lot of that engineering can be seen in the pyramid. So Wardenclyffe Tower was his facility on Long Island, which is big, just a big tower. It looks like a water tower, but it's built over an aquifer. And what Tesla was trying to do was use the water creates this deep resonant sound that resonates with the Earth's natural frequency. Everything has a resonant frequency. Whether the Earth, this chair, our bodies, everything does. And if you can come into harmony with that frequency, it will expand, it will amplify. And there's been research that certain wavelengths broadcast at the Great Pyramid will amplify that electromagnetic energy. It's around 200 meters, I think. So Tesla is fascinated with that engineering. But the pyramid power plant theory is a lot like Tesla's technology. The Giza Plateau, there is an aquifer under there. There's a lot of water under there. And that water would create this resonant frequency. And they found copper rods that go down there that would help bring up some of the electricity or however it worked. And then in the pyramid, at the various chambers, there's residue of certain chemicals that when combined create a lot of hydrogen, like a violent reaction of hydrogen. So coming down from the Queen's chamber, and then I forget the other chamber, but they're built in a way so they come down, you use gravity, and you just pour these chemicals down, creates this hydrogen reaction, which we know there's residue of these chemicals there. This is not a conspiracy theory. The hydrogen expands, comes up through the gallery, which is this big hallway that goes up to the King's chamber. And they've discovered that in the Grand Gallery, there used to be these wooden posts or some kind of sort of flat wooden things. And those would create sound. It's called a Helmholtz resonator. Like when you blow across a bottle, it goes, whoo, that air is a Helmholtz resonator. So this hydrogen would come up through the chamber. These things would resonate with sound, the F-sharp chord specifically, and that would cause it to build up more and more and more. The hydrogen expands. This chamber is built out of rose granite, which is an unusual type of granite because it's densely made of quartz. And when you compress quartz, it creates electricity. It's called piezoelectricity. And if you have a lot of quartz, you can create a lot of electricity. There's been experiments done where if it's a mountain of quartz, it creates something like 10 million volts, like it creates a lot of power. So you've got you've got the hydrogen expanding, creating this electricity. It's ionizing the air, amplifying it more. You've got the sound coming through, amplifying it more. And then you've got this hole leading into the King's chamber that's 4.8 inches by 8.4 inches, which is the perfect size for a hydrogen atoms microwave to just fit through as a waveguide. Comes up into the King's chamber. And the King's chamber has these pillars and on top of it, a bunch of stones that are stacked. Everything is really smooth, except the top is really rough. And forever, they thought that they called this the relieving stones, that these would relieve the pressure of the pyramids. But they're not connected to anything, so there's no pressure there. But what they found is that this creates music, creates this chord. And what the theory is it's rough on top because they would chip away at it and tune it until it was just about right. And that's why it's smooth on the bottom but rough on the top. And so you've got all this energy, so how do we get it out? Well, when the pyramids were new or, intact, the interior is made out of a certain type of limestone that electricity can move around in. The exterior is made out of a different kind of limestone called Tura limestone, which is quarried from far, far away and brought in.
Way down the Nile, right?
Way down, hundreds of miles away. Like you'll hear Zayawas talk about the limestone on the pyramid, but he never talks about the Tura limestone or the rose granite. So there's all these different. Why not just build the whole thing out of the same rocks that are right here? Why bring the Tura limestone to Giza is like bringing the 100-ton blocks up the coast of Florida. It's like that far, but it's a special type of limestone that's very low in magnesium. It's a great insulator. So you've got this electricity, and then you've got sort of this conductor, and then you've got another insulator. And that's called a dielectric, and that creates even more power. And if you had a gold capstone on top, which is a great conductor, you can force that energy up through the capstone and up into the ionosphere. And that's what Nikola Tesla was trying to do. It's the same technology. Where I get stuck is, I love all of that, and I buy it. But we don't see any evidence of what they did with the power. So the people who are really into it will say, well, the obelisks at one time also had metal capstones, so they would be receivers. Okay, but still, what did they do with it? You know, there's no computers, there's no light bulbs. The ancient Egyptians didn't work with glass, so what did they do with it? My guess is the Egyptians didn't build any of this. Is the reason that we don't see any evidence of what the Egyptians did with power is because they didn't use it for power. I think the Egyptians just found it, and they said, wow, this is crazy. This gods must have made this, and it just became sort of this, you know, religious type of structure. It's supposed to be the tomb for Khufu, but no mummy's ever been found in a pyramid. We've never found any of that. Now,
Wow.
Egyptologists will say, well, they were robbed. The mummies were there, but they were taken out. All right, well, there's no evidence of any of that, but there is evidence of zinc chloride at one side and hydrochloric acid on another side and sulfuric acid here, and there's an inch of salt that would, up and down this chamber, that would be the result of a chemical reaction. There's evidence of an explosion at some point. On all this stuff you can look up. You don't have to believe what I'm saying. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm just saying these things are true, and I'm just connecting the dots for my entertainment. But you can go look at them and make up your own mind.
Damn. So you think they found them?
I think they found them. I think they were there for a long time.
So what do you think that was? Previous civilizations?
Previous
aliens?
civilizations. I'm not an alien guy.
You're not an alien guy?
Not really, because I can't wrap my mind around crossing the distances of space. They're so far. Like we can't. Space is so big that the human mind we can't comprehend it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, so we've got this comet 3I Atlas just zipping into the solar system now. It's the fastest object we've ever found. It's like 135,000 miles an hour. We've never seen a comet move this fast. It's still going to take 6 months to get through. So it's that big. So I can't get my mind around aliens, wormholes, folding space. I can't get my mind around it. But something's going on. I've seen videos. Most, you know, I don't believe the whistleblowers. I don't believe anyone from Air Force intelligence. I don't believe any of that. And if you have a book out, I don't believe what you're saying. If you're cleared by the DOD,
I definitely don't.
I definitely don't. If you still have clearance and you're still a contractor and you're still working with DOD, I can't. You're not a whistleblower. You're doing PR. So, with all due respect, I don't believe you guys. Matthew Brown, I think his last name is Brown. He's kind of a compelling whistleblower because he doesn't go over the top. He just says, I found evidence of, you know, something going on in space, and that's really all he says. So as far as the ancient civilizations, you know, I don't go as far as like Graham Hancock might go, where this ancient advanced civilization. I don't want to put words in his mouth because I'm a huge admirer, huge fan. I've made at least 10 videos based around his research. But in geologic time, the surface of the Earth just turns itself inside and out every few million years. So the Earth we're standing on now just wasn't here 10 million years ago. There's only a couple of places on the planet that still have exposed rock that's 4 billion years old. I think Jack Hill in Australia, and then somewhere in Canada, like West Canada. Everything else is pretty new. So if there was a civilization, it's very easy for it just to get folded into just the tectonic activity of the Earth. And perhaps the pyramids survived that. You know, when we see the pictures of the discovery of the Sphinx, it was buried. You know, they didn't just walk up and see a Sphinx there. They just saw like the top of a head, and they were like, what's this? And they dug all that out. And then on there, we see evidence of high volume, high pressure water flow and water erosion. It's kind of hard to discount that now, which they did for years. It's hard to discount it. When you look at Robert Schoch's work and Randall Carlson's work, to me, it's not debatable. It's right there.
Mm-hmm. Well, also on Easter Island.
Easter Island
there's those heads that
the Moai heads. People don't realize those heads have bodies. So you see all these heads sticking up. They have bodies. So first of all, Easter Island is in the middle of nowhere. If you look at it on Google Earth, good luck. You'll never find it. You have to type it in and then pull back and see how in the middle of nowhere this place is. So you've got these statues that are, I don't know, 80 tons or whatever. So either there's 1,000 of them on the island. So either
There's 1,000 of them?
of those. So either they dug these holes and dropped in a giant statue and then filled it in, or the statues were there and then the earth came over and filled on top of it. I don't know. You know, I'm not, there's a lot of mud flood conspiracy theorists. I'm not one of those. But if those statues are really old, the earth has changed quite a bit in that time. I don't know why they're buried. Nobody does. And at one point, Easter Island had 25,000 people living on it. It's a whole society. And it's only, a few square miles, tiny little triangle.
Man, I did not realize that. I'd love to go there sometime. But aren't all these Stonehenge, the pyramids, Machu Picchu, Easter Island, I know there's more that that I can't remember right now, but aren't all these things they're like a perfect line, right?
Yeah, there's the ley line theory that there are these lines of energy that go around the earth. And where these lines intersect, they're high energy points. And that's where these ancient sites are. And they're pretty close. But when you look at the ley line maps, you can make it look like anything. I've seen ley line maps that look like just lines everywhere. Like you can make anything fit. So I'm not totally convinced on the ley line theory.
Gotcha. I'm not that in touch with it, but it's just, have you looked into Stonehenge at all?
A little bit.
What's going on there? What do you think that is?
I really just think it wasn't Druids. It was definitely an ancient culture, but they had pretty advanced engineering. And that whole compound is really big. Like it's more than just the stones that we see. It's a whole perimeter. And then there's another site not too far from it that's even bigger, but there's not really stones there anymore. But this was a giant compound. But these stones line up so well with equinoxes that it shows that there's some type of advanced engineering. And it doesn't sound that impressive until you realize that when you ask someone what an equinox is, kind of what I was taught was it's when the day and night are the same length. That's an equinox, but that's not what it is. That's an equal lux. That when day and night are equal is different for everybody on the planet, depending on where you are. An equinox is when the sun is perfectly over the equator around the earth. So whoever built Stonehenge were lining up the stones to match when the sun was perfectly over the equator, but they're not supposed to know about the equator. So how did they do that?
Man.
So if you get into the numerology of the pyramids, it's the same thing. If you take the height of the pyramid and multiply it by 43,200, it turns out to be the polar radius of the earth. And then take the perimeter and multiply it by 43,200, and it becomes the circumference of the earth. It's very easy to dismiss that, but I find it interesting. A lot of coincidences are just that, but in those there's some interesting threads to pull. And that's what I do is I just pull the threads and I lay it out like this. I tell it as excited as I am because I'm fascinated. I'm not saying I believe hardly any of it. I'm just giving you what I've found.
You've looked into remote viewing too.
Very much.
I wasn't planning on going here, but so I dove into remote viewing. I've had Joe McMoneagle, Angela Ford, Colonel John Alexander. Who am I missing? Skip Atwater. I've had Edwin May. I've had them all on because so
These are big names.
yeah. Backstory. I was telling you about my friend in the road rage incident, right? And we had contracted. We were contracting at the agency together. And I remember way after we got really close after we were there, and he had mentioned that he had seen remote viewers show up at station in one of the countries that we were in.
Interesting.
And I was like, what the fuck is a remote viewer?
What year is this?
This was probably somewhere in between 2010 and 2015.
Oh, so Stargate has been shut down 20 years.
Yep, long time after. And so we started having these chats, and he was kind of schooling me up on what they are. And I was like, are you sure? And he's like, yes, I'm 100% sure. He's not a conspiracy guy. So I started diving into it. And first guy I had on was actually this guy, Shawn Webb, who introduced me to Joe McMoneagle. And Shawn had gone through the Monroe Institute and he was like my first guy that was telling me how it worked and the hemisync and all this and the envelopes and
Army military intelligence went through that whole program.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm very familiar with it at this point. But you did, I think it was you. I think I used one of your episodes for my research actually. And Joe had remote viewed some type of extraterrestrial type facility in Alaska. Was that your episode?
It's probably Pat Price. Pat Price saw under Mount Hayes.
That's it. That's it.
Mount Mother Effin Hayes, he likes to call it. Pat Price he's the most believable remote viewer to me. He fascinates me. But the OGs are Joe McMoneagle, Ingo Swann, and Pat Price. Those are like the original guys from SRI. Which is Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff ran that program. Who are probably gettable. I'd like to see Hal on your show.
I'd love to get Hal on my show.
Yeah, he was very entertaining on Rogan, but I also made the point that Hal Puthoff has been connected to disinformation. So you got to take everything with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
Remote viewing, I think there might be something to it. Most of it, I think, is nonsense. Most of it, I think, is like strip mall psychic stuff. Joe McMoneagle definitely saw some things. And you sat here with him. He's a no-nonsense guy. And I think he kind of downplays it, but this is a war hero. You know, he was a rock star in Vietnam, and I think he has a near-death experience, and then he has these abilities. And he's definitely found some things. I think he was the one who found the Soviet sub.
That's him.
Yeah.
That was the first big thing.
Right. But Pat Price was Pat Price was a retired like police chief from Burbank, California. And he was known in the department of just being good at solving crimes. And he just kind of knew where the body was, or he knew where this guy was or that. And he just thought like his hunches were strong. So he retired and had a little bit more time to just kind of relax and focus on his talent. And he just started to actually see that he had an ability. So Pat Price he saw in the Soviet Union, giant crane on like railroad tracks that you would never even just make up. But he saw that, and then it was verified with spy plane that they saw that was real with Pat Price. So he had so many of those that the CIA just pulled him in. They pulled him out of SRI. And he really wasn't looking to do that. So he goes over there, and he's dead pretty soon after. He bumps into somebody in the lobby of a hotel in Las Vegas. He feels a pinch on his arm, goes up to his room, calls his wife, and he's dead by morning. But Pat Price remote viewed into Mount Hayes, saw a joint alien U.S. military operation inside the mountain, and he put the files together. And I think from there, he gave the files to Hal, who then gave them to Skip. I could have the timeline wrong, but it's something like that. Like Pat didn't pursue it. He gave it over to the people he trusted. And I don't know if they had anyone who can go and follow up with what Pat saw, because he was really talented. But SRI taught a lot of people to do it. They had a secretary there that they were like, let's just teach her to do it and see if she can do it. And she like found a Soviet plane that went down in the Congo within 2 miles of accuracy. It's such a weird story. So, with someone like Joe, if he's going to do 20,000 viewings, he's going to get some right, but most of his stuff is wrong. So we tend to cherry pick the good stuff, but it doesn't discount it completely.
Yeah, that's what Edwin May told me. I think he said, and I can't remember the number, but I think it may have been around 40%. He said, yeah, he's like, none of this can be, it has to be proven for it to be like a win. And because we were talking about the pyramids on Mars that Joe had remote viewed, and he was like, Joe was only right. I'm not correct on this. It may be lower, maybe a little. It's probably lower if it's not this number. But he said Joe was only right 40% of the time.
That's a lot.
If you can't prove it, then you cannot take it as fact.
Right. He said he saw all those tall beings on Mars, but he didn't know what he was remote viewing. He just got coordinates. And then they opened the envelope and it's Mars 1 million BC.
Yeah.
Which is a great story, but it's hard to verify that.
Yeah.
But Ingo Swann's another one who remote viewed the moon and saw aliens up there. And he said, aliens are not our friends. So he went up to the far side and he said, yeah, there are bases up there. They're watching us. They're all over it.
Man, that's crazy to think about, isn't it? But, all right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to hit Patriot Act.
Oof. Here we go.
Perfect. Whether you're juggling tasks or trying to stay clear-headed throughout the day, Ketone IQ delivers clean brain fuel that can help you think sharper, longer, and smoother. No caffeine, no crash, no overstimulation. Thanks to the folks at HVMN for sending me their Ketone IQ product to try. I really like taking Ketone IQ before I work out. It's not an energy drink, but it gives me a ton of energy. I wish I had this when I was on active duty. When I take it, I have more endurance, but without the crash. Ketone IQ uses ketone diol for a fast-acting, natural, slow-release effect with no artificial sweeteners or fillers. It helps support high-focus tasks by directly powering neurons and stabilizing cognitive output, and it's military tested. Originally developed to support elite cognitive performance in the field. HVMN has an amazing offer just for my listeners. Visit ketone.com/SRS for 30% off your subscription order, plus receive a free gift with your second shipment. Fun surprises like a free 6-pack, Ketone IQ merch, and more. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. I've spent years on this show pulling back the curtain and trying to reveal what's really happening in this country. And the truth is, there's a double standard here in America. You see time and time again, people defending themselves, defending their family, and then the judicial system goes after them. It's a double standard. And if you don't believe me, check out episode number 3 with Don Bradley. That is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Because it's not just about what you did, believe it or not, it's how the legal system interprets it. And that's why I'm a USCCA member. The USCCA has over 860,000 members because they know the reality is, after you stop the threat, the real fight begins. Your membership gives you the education, elite training, and self-defense liability insurance you need for the second fight, the legal one. Plus, every member also gets access to a 24/7 critical response team and attorney network in the event of a self-defense incident. Violent crime happens too often in America. This isn't about living in fear. This is about being prepared when things go sideways. You don't get to schedule danger, and with the world changing so fast, you have to do what you can to protect your family. Check out the USCCA's risk-free membership at uscca.com/SRS. That's uscca.com/SRS. Protect more than just your life. Protect your future. Go right now to uscca.com/SRS. All right, AJ, we're back from the break. We're getting ready to dive into the Patriot Act. So I know you just came out with a video on this. I purposely have not watched it because I wanted this to be 100% organic. But it's something that I've been interested in. It seems to be resurfacing right now with AI and all this other stuff. So, in fact, I better grab a sesh for this one.
Same.
But what got you interested in the topic? How did it pop up on your radar? 'Cause it's been going on for a long time.
Been going on for a while. It popped up on my radar for when I was doing an episode about 33 Thomas Street, which is the Long Lines building. But
The what building?
Long Lines building, it's the AT&T Long Lines building, 33 Thomas Street, New York, codenamed Titan Point. And New Yorkers will know this building. It's the weirdest building you'll ever see. It has no windows, just has exhaust vents. It's no lights. So when it's nighttime in the city, you've got all the lights on the skyline, and you just got this void for 32 Thomas. It's a very strange building. And all you hear is the exhaust. And the lobby looks normal until you get up kind of close, and it's like, wow, there's a lot of security here. And you can't get in there. So it's codenamed Titan Point, which we learned from the Edward Snowden documents. And it turned out that this is one of the facilities, one of several, but this is a big one, that was capturing all of our phone calls. You know, they talk about, well, it's just metadata. But metadata is enough, because metadata includes who you're calling, what time, where they are, your location. So you could be totally tracked. And it helps them create that network, which the Patriot Act allows, where if you're a person of interest, anyone you communicate with is automatically a person of interest. And it just is a geometric progression. So when I was doing that episode, I was really just wanted to cover the weird building and, you know, what NSA was doing there, capturing the records. And it just started to get emotional because whenever I can, I just play James Clapper line at Congress, you know, whenever I can, when he's asked, so can you confirm that that NSA is not capturing millions or hundreds of millions of Americans' records? And he says, no, sure, no, sir, we're not, you know, intentionally or something like that. And then later he says, well, I told the most truthful, you know, least truthful, whatever it was. And then eventually had to apologize because the Snowden documents revealed they're capturing everything. So it's not just metadata. They were doing whole capture of phone calls, all kinds of stuff. NSA was embedded inside of Google and Yahoo and Microsoft so that everything on like your Google Drive was accessible. If you look at the PowerPoint, the engineers are so excited they have like emojis and smiley faces, like we got it, we finally got into Google. So that was probably the first episode that got me really thinking, okay, every so often I'm going to do a government corruption, government transparency episode. Try to make it fun, but the point is, you know, do not trust them. They are constantly lying to us. And there's no regard to the Constitution at all. Now, the Patriot Act, for me, it's kind of weird because I'm a New Yorker. I was there for 9/11, and it's very emotional for New Yorkers that were there still very emotional. You know, I had a friend who was a fireman there as part of cleanup, and he was a broken man after that, just completely broken. And my brother had friends in one of the towers that came down. So it's close to us. So I remember I was all in with whatever we got to do to get these guys. Mm-hmm. Patriot Act, let's do it. But we kind of expanded the government's powers a lot there. And it seemed like it happened pretty quickly. So you've got 9/11, and the Patriot Act is signed, I think, like October 16th or 20. Like, it was like 4-6 weeks that they got this giant bill together. So either they had some really smart lawyers or this was kind of hanging around. Like, and here's an opportunity to do it. Mm-hmm. And that leads into the 9/11 conspiracy, which kind of makes sense, which I don't go into on my show.
Why don't you go into that?
Because it's a taboo topic and it's emotionally charged, and the bad guys are the government. And if we learn that 9/11 really was an inside job, I don't know how that doesn't really challenge your patriotism. Now, I consider myself a patriot. I love my country. I don't like the people that run it. I like the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I really like those. And I'm very libertarian, borderline anarchist in a political sense, not like craziness, meaning like I don't think we need much government for anything. Keep us safe abroad. Domestically, keep it local. That's kind of how I feel. I think the federal government's way too involved in our lives in every different level.
I'm with you.
But the Patriot Act violates the First Amendment in a few different ways. Free speech is gone. So if you say anything that's considered dangerous or explosive, suddenly you're on a list. And then you can be gag ordered. So that's prior restraint. You can't do that. Then you've got the Fourth Amendment violations where illegal search and seizure. You can't search through Americans without probable cause. You just can't. But the Patriot Act says you no longer need probable cause. You just need to be relevant. So if you're relevant to an investigation, then we don't need a warrant. We can just look into your files. And this gets renewed time and time again. So it's not a left-right Democrat Republican. They just these are sunset clauses that keep getting re-signed. I forget the numbers offhand, but 215 is certainly one of them. And the Patriot Act is mostly used for finding drug dealers. It's not really used for terrorism. It never really was. We don't really know if it's ever stopped anything. And then, the IC and the government will say, well, you don't know because we can't tell you, but we stopped this or that. Well, but did you though? At some point you have to tell us if it worked, because we need to decide if we still want to do this, because you're encroaching on a First Amendment right, our Fourth, our Fifth Amendment, due process, habeas corpus. And I thought this was just supposed to be for like foreign agents. But now if an American is on the phone with someone who's a foreign national, now this American is wrapped up in the Patriot Act. When what should happen is as soon as who's ever surveil foreigners all you want. I don't care. Mm-hmm. Leave my citizens alone. So as soon as you find out, well, all right, this person of interest is on the phone with an American, well, then it stops. Now we have to bring this out of the Patriot Act and put it into our legal system and have a judge look at it and all of that. Not a FISA court rubber stamp where FISA is like 99.97%. Just get yes, go whatever you got to do. That's another violation of separation of powers. You have no oversight. It just seems like doesn't seem like it's what it is.
It's interesting too, because if they were doing that with all the just one aspect, all the mass shootings that are happening, if they were really surveilling everybody, don't you think those people maybe have had some type of communication or I mean, it's been proven, right? There's been things on Facebook, there's been things on Instagram that if they're on there, they're definitely in text messagings and voice calls and all of that stuff. Unless they want that stuff to happen, maybe they do. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they use it against the Second Amendment.
Well, rather than even speculate, let's look at an actual case where at some point, I don't remember when, during the Biden administration, remember you had all these parents that were protesting about whatever trans issues or whatever they were. I'm not interested in that. Believe what you want to believe on that issue. That's none of my business. What I care about is the administration worked with a group to write a letter to the president to designate these Americans as potential domestic terrorists and use the Patriot Act to surveil them and gather records on them and look into them. We can't have that. I don't know why there was an outrage over that. These are Americans from the jump. So the Patriot Act shouldn't apply, but it does. And no one really challenges it. I don't think anyone even really talks about this that much.
I'd never heard about it.
It all goes back to Snowden because they lied and lied and lied. And then the Snowden documents it was just such a bombshell. But not only are they collecting all this stuff, I mean, all of us, every single one of us, but they were in our files. They can read our email. They can, our search history, everything about us. Where if if I'm charged with something and you use the Patriot Act against me, my first thing would be like, well, it's all inadmissible. I'm an American citizen. I have Fourth Amendment right. You didn't have probable cause. Let me see the warrant. Let me see the affidavit. What judge did you use? Well, we used the FISA judge. Well, with the FISA reviews are done in complete secrecy. There's no transparency. No one can. You can't sit in on those. You can't wander into the courtroom like you can in most towns here and just watch proceedings. It's all secret. It's just you've got Richard Nixon, who turns the intelligence community, foreign and domestic, against his political enemies. That's bad. So then we review that, then you have the Church Committee, and out of that, you get the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978 is FISA.
What was the Church Committee?
That was reviewing all what like CIA and FBI was doing. All the bad stuff kind of came to light during the Church Committee. And that made Congress realize, they're using FBI and to actually go after political enemies. We can't have that. So we'll have FISA, which will review these. But then FISA starts to get abused. And then when the Patriot Act comes along in 2001, it supercharges FISA. And now everything is just rubber stamped. And we don't know really what they're doing with it. We just know they renew it. And whether it's Trump or Biden or Obama, they sign with the pen and there's applause and America's going to be safe. And I don't know if there's any evidence of that. Out of that time, we got the TSA. I think the TSA is just in the way. I think in 2015, they sent, they were called red teams to test the TSA, secret shop them. And they created mock weapons and mock explosives. Take a guess at what percentage got through.
Oh, man.
95.
Are you serious?
95% got through. So then they tried it again in 2017.
95% of the weapons got through?
Guns, bombs, all of it. So we have a shoe bomber that is ridiculous. So now we all taking off our shoes. Then we have someone who's going to make a bomb with liquid that's not going to work, but now we can't bring, shampoo. So I've got my wife emptying her purse because the shampoo is over the ounces. Are you crazy? And, you're basically assaulting a grandma. That's really who we're worried about? I'm small government libertarian. I say get rid of all of that and let the airlines handle their own security. They do it more efficiently. And if the airline's not doing it well, no one will fly on it and they'll go away. And then you wouldn't have to wait on these lines with this ineffective agency. Now, after the red teams filed their report, TSA kind of tried to do a better job, and then they were tested again 2 years later, and I think 60% got through. It was the majority.
Wow.
So it's ineffective. TSA's never stopped a terrorist, never once. There's 0 times. Terrorism is stopped locally by local law enforcement and with federal intervention long before they get to the airport. That's where it happens. People can say I'm wrong, but the data is the data. If they were stopping terrorists all the time, then great, then let's keep doing it. But if it's just a bloated bureaucracy that's making us miserable, I hate going to the airport because of this. Mm-hmm. It's the worst part of it, is doing it, and it's so ineffectual. So I don't know why it's still there. I don't know why we had to create the Department of Homeland Security and take 22 agencies and lump them together with all this overlap. And now you've got, still, this is 25 years. There's still turf wars, and it's my jurisdiction. No, it's mine. It's my collar. No, it's mine. I don't know why we needed to create another bureaucracy that's $100 billion a year. It's got 250,000 employees. We had the FBI. We had immigration. We had the Border Patrol. We had all the agencies already. Now you put them under a cabinet position, and it's all this overlap. And I don't think it's necessary. It's not efficient, and I don't think it's keeping us safer. Now, I could be wrong. I don't know. I want us to take the right steps to keep us safe. Like I said, I want people in law enforcement and the military to have the best tools to do whatever needs to be done, to be absolutely vicious with our enemies. But Americans are not really the enemies. And there needs to be some oversight and transparency because we don't know what any of these agencies are doing. And we see just recently that the FBI was used for political purposes again. So I brought up a couple of cases where it was Democrats using it, but remember, this all comes out of Nixon and Republicans using it. And would President Trump use these agencies to help him? Well, he's doing it now. Maybe it's justified. Maybe it's not.
How's he doing it now?
I think with him, it's a lot of getting even because they really, what they did to him was just so unprecedented with a former president to all charge him with 97 felonies to try and take him off the ballot in 25 states. I mean, to try to ruin him financially and personally and go through his wife's underwear and, drag him through the courts in Georgia and try to make him go broke. Mm-hmm. So anybody's going to, if you get back in power, if it was me, it'd be the same thing. Well, I'm going to do everything legally, but now what comes around goes around. And that's not really the way it should be. Mm-hmm. These agencies should be completely agnostic. Like, no, sir, we can't do that. We're not going after the former president, and no, President Trump, we're not going after these people. We don't do that. We follow crimes. Let's have them do that.
You know what's interesting is the Patriot Act, I mean, it was set in place for terrorism, correct? And so, we were talking about off camera about, the Taliban funding and all this stuff, and I have a lot of contacts, that are former agency types, former intel types. And one in particular, Sarah Adams, one of the best targeters to ever come out of CIA. And she has broken on the show several times that there are a minimum of 1,000 terrorist cells within our country. And, how they communicate. So we have the Patriot Act, right? It's all basically tech-based. Mm-hmm. People think that these terrorists are dumb because they live in caves, they live in caves, they live in mud huts, they wear, sandals. It's very, very, it's almost like prehistoric time period when you go there. So they don't communicate through tech at all anymore. And so what she says, and other intelligence professionals have said, is that within these terrorist cells, the only way that they communicate with their HQ, which is in Afghanistan, is through couriers. So there's no texts, there's no emails, there's no voice calls. None of them know where each other are at. So even if you were able to find out where one of the cells are at, you could not interrogate them to find out where the other cells are. They're all completely independent of each other. And
compartmentalization.
They only use couriers, which means they fly a guy in, they brief them, they debrief. The information goes back to HQ in Afghanistan. So it would be impossible to break down the entire network. I don't even know where you would start.
I don't know how you would either. I mean, it wasn't that how Osama bin Laden was finally found was through his couriers, right? It wasn't through intercepting any intelligence through wires. It was through a human just following this guy around. He's going to this palace. So I think all you're doing there is you're forcing them to learn tradecraft and just get better at tradecraft because they can do that.
They pivot.
Mm-hmm.
What is the Patriot Act turning into?
I think it's just turned into a political tool at this point. The going after the parents was really a big red flag because the Patriot Act was specifically in that letter. Like, you should use the Patriot Act to go after these people. And I didn't think any of those parents looked like political or domestic terrorists to me. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's my bias. But
what parents?
There was a lot of parents protesting during the trans controversy in the protesting
in the schools.
In the schools, and part of the administration at that time wanted to label them domestic terrorists mm-hmm. and put them under surveillance. And then once they become relevant is the word in the act. Once they become relevant to an investigation, then you don't have to. Then the Bill of Rights is gone. Then they can just go into your bank account, see what's going on there, your businesses, all of that, and just compile a file on you. It's like that old Soviet saying, like, "Well, show me the man, and I'll show you the crime." And that's just not how it's supposed to be done. And I don't think it makes us safer. But again, I'm kind of black-pilled on it because once you have that power, you don't want to give it up. Like if I was in charge, I wouldn't want to give it up either. No, I would hope that if I was out in that position, I would do the right thing. But I don't know. I'm as flawed as anybody else. But when Clapper's caught, I don't know when you left. See, did you leave before Brennan?
2015.
Brennan was 2015. I think we might see some indictments for some of these people. And for everyone screaming left and right, look, these are people on both sides that are going to get caught up in this. But I think we're going to see some indictments.
Why do you think that?
Because they did it. They did it. The Russia collusion thing, they did it. The Steele dossier, they did it. So Clapper lies to Congress, and we find out he's violating all of our rights. I think he was DNI at the time. And instead of going to prison, he becomes a contributor on CNN or MSNBC. I don't know why he didn't go to prison. I don't know why none of these people face any ramifications at all. How about just a misdemeanor? Just show me that we don't live in a 2-tiered, 3-tiered system where it seems like if I did any of this stuff, I'd go to jail forever.
They can't show you.
But if you're in the swamp.
You live in that.
Mm-hmm. So I can't. I have no solutions. All I have is complaints.
Man. What do you think they do with all the information?
Most of it I don't think they do anything with. But, if it turns up that, do you think that you're of interest to someone somewhere? Right?
I know I am.
Of course. So
bad.
everything you do is collected.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's probably 2 or 3 collections officers that are just dedicated to what you do. Why?
Because, man, this sounds weird to say, and these are not my words, but because we have an impact on the consciousness of the U.S.
That's dangerous. They want to control the impact.
Mm-hmm.
They can't have independent voices controlling the conversation.
They've got a lot of them now.
I hope that we're past that point of inflection where the independent voices are more powerful. I think they are. I think they are.
They definitely are.
I get more views on a video than all cable news channels combined. So do you. The number of views that you get is all of cable combined. There's no power there anymore, and they don't like that. But it's not like we wrested it away. It's people just started talking, and Americans just want to listen to different voices. Mm-hmm. And I think we need more of that on every part of the political spectrum. Yeah, I think the media is over.
I do too. I think it will die with the baby boomer generation.
Yep.
I think it's done. And I see certain people that I think are injected into the YouTube podcast stratosphere that they try to create narratives, but it's tricky. You could have somebody in here, and I think I've had 1 or 2, not realizing it until afterwards, but how it works is...
Wait a second. You feel like people have come in here to try to push a narrative?
Yeah.
Did you sniff it out?
Yeah.
Like while it was happening, you were like, wait a minute.
I've had interviews that I never released.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I've had a couple, not very many, but, when I was asking you about, do you feel that you take on a tremendous responsibility? I feel that I have a great responsibility when I'm diving into corruption, exposing something, exposing evil, whatever it may be. You have to fucking be careful with that because people base decisions off what is said in here. And I remember one specific example. I had a guy come on and he was talking about a lot of COVID stuff. And I told you at breakfast, I don't like diving into COVID because everybody was talking about it. I don't really have anything new to bring to the table.
Right.
You know, and there's a couple, there's January 6th is another one. I don't really feel there's so many people on that I don't feel that I don't bring anything to the table that hasn't already been said. Also, I mean, with that specific event, J6, I mean, I think everybody was wrong.
Yep.
I mean, if you thought it was a great idea
It's not a great idea.
to storm the fucking Capitol, I don't even know, you know what I mean? I don't even know where to begin. Like, not a good idea.
No.
And on the other side, you know, when he asked, you know, for National Guard and was denied, I mean,
No one talks about that.
yep, that was there's a whole nother that's wrong, you know. And so I don't think there's any good that came from either side on that. I think that entire event was a black eye on America. But and now I forgot where I was going with this because
We're talking about people coming in here with an agenda.
And so how it works, I mean, you could have somebody sit in here for 8 hours, 4 hours, 5, whatever. They may only have one specific sentence in that 5-hour interview that they want this person to say, and it's going to be a banger. And the other thing that could happen is they will predict information that's going to come out in days, weeks, in a month, in a couple months. And they'll make these predictions about what's going to happen, who did what, done, you know, whatever. And they already know it's not a prediction. Or maybe it didn't happen, but that's what's going to play out in mainstream media. And these people will come in and they will make these predictions. And some of these guys and girls will go, they do the circuit. They go on every podcast, right? They go on all the podcasts and they'll text you like, oh, I said this on your podcast. I said this was going to happen. We should do this again. And it's like, you must have been on 20 fucking podcasts in the past month, and you remember exactly what you said on my podcast. I don't remember what the hell I said yesterday, but
Right.
You're here to remind me that you predicted this on my fucking show, and now you want to come on again. And then another one, and then another one. And it's like, I see what's happening here.
You can't give an example, right?
What's that?
You can't give an example.
I don't want to.
Fair enough.
I don't want to drop names because I can't be certain. Just like you were doing earlier.
Not a name, an idea.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, that would give it away.
Fair enough.
So I don't, because if that person didn't do that, then I destroy.
Not pressing.
You know what I mean? And so I really try to only talk about things. If I'm gonna articulate it, I want it to be true. You know, to the best of my knowledge. And I don't, this is an inclination. This is a feeling, knowing how things work. I've contracted for intelligence agencies at a very low level, but, you know, it wasn't like you don't get access to everything and be like, oh, I got a TS clearance now so I can just dive into whatever I want. No, that's not how it works. And so the stuff that I knew was very, it was very localized to exactly what I was a part of overseas in Afghanistan, Iraq, those Middle East type stuff. But but I'm quick and I see how it works, and I've seen how it works in other countries. And so when I start picking up on it, I'm like, no, you're not coming back on. No way. Too many predictions came true. There's no way you could have known that. And there's no way out of the 20 podcasts you just did in the past month that you remember exactly what the fuck you talked about on my show. This is this smells weird, so not doing it again. And and with the so that's the point. That's the point. It doesn't mean the whole duration of the interview is the message that's trying to be sent. It could be one sentence, or it could just be, let's establish this guy's credibility so that all the podcasts want the breaking news, right? And so I'm slow, but I'm in tune, and I know how things work to a certain extent. Not very much, but I can pick up on things. And the other thing that people are really good at is manipulating information. Politicians are amazing at it. Statistics only go so far. There's all kinds of sets of statistics that may be true, but there's nuance behind it. And so with the COVID thing, I was interviewing this guy, and he kept saying, hey, COVID was developed in a lab, University of North Carolina. It was patented before COVID ever came out. And it was this long interview all about COVID, the vaccine, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I took the vaccine. I didn't want to take the vaccine, but my son was being born right at that time period. And I was like, well, I've done a lot of drugs in my life.
How bad could this be?
And if those didn't kill me, and I've seen a lot of combat, and I've done a lot of dangerous shit, right? And if none of that killed me, then this stupid little vaccine isn't going to kill me either. And it hasn't. And I don't have any heart problems, at least not yet. I don't have any of the weird, I don't have any of this, the whatever. So anyways, this guy was going on about the COVID vaccine, how it was developed, University of North Carolina had a play in it, and that it was patented pre-COVID. But every time he would say it was COVID-19, when he would say the vaccine was patented, he would say the SARS vaccine was patented pre-COVID. Well, if you look, there's like 100 strands of COVID.
Yep.
That have been around for a long time.
Coronavirus is a lot of things.
Yep. And so when he kept saying SARS, and I didn't pick up on it right off the bat, it wasn't until after the interview, and I called, Darren in there, and I was like, we can't release it. And he's like, this is so good. This is so good. It's so corrupt. And I'm like, he kept saying the SARS vaccine. Why didn't he say the COVID-19 vaccine? Because he's not technically lying.
Right.
I'm sure there were a lot of SARS vaccines that were patented pre-COVID, but he never did say that the COVID-19 vaccine was patented pre-COVID. He would switch it to SARS. So I wouldn't release it because, while I'm not anti-vax, I don't like the COVID vax. Took it because I wanted to see my son born. And I was worried that the hospital was going to come out with some, some weird rule that you had to show your vaccine card or something. And the doctor was pushing it too. But so I took it, and because I was like, I'm not missing that for anything. I don't care. But when you put something like that out, then people start to they use that in their decision-making process. And I don't want to be the guy that's putting out false information or platforming somebody that's putting out that kind of information that's going to dictate how somebody makes a decision on whether they're going to get the vaccine or not. I mean, it is what it is. It wasn't the numbers that were reported, but people were dying from it.
Yep.
And I don't want somebody to die because they didn't take something that may have, probably not. I mean, I got COVID right after I took the fucking vaccine.
Of course.
They couldn't even figure out how to test for it. It's like, well, let's take another one. Well, this one's non-conclusive.
Therapeutic.
But I wouldn't put it out because I was like, I can't have people making decisions off something that I'm not certain about. I mean, we talk, we talk about aliens, we talk about conspiracies, but that's fun shit to think about. Doesn't really matter, Okay, so if it is true, it's not going to affect your decision-making process throughout the day. You're not going to make life-changing decisions based off of whether there was aliens or there isn't aliens, or they remote viewed alien bases in fucking Alaskan mountains, or if there's aliens on the moon. Like, cool. If they're there, they're there. And if they're not, they're not. Doesn't really, like, it might affect me, but there's no decision that I can make that's going to change the outcome of that.
Right.
And so I'm very particular about if I talk about a subject like that, I'm very particular on who I get and what's being put out. And there's been others. I did one on the World Economic Forum that I was like this, and the guy couldn't even tell me what the World Economic Forum was. I'm like, yeah, but what is it? And he's like, well, the Google Chrome sign is a 666. And I'm like, okay, that's another subject. What is the World Economic Forum? Is it a business? What is it? What kind of entity is it? Do you know? Well, this did. If you look at the Bible, it says this. And I'm like, don't be out here quoting scripture in the middle of this interview. I'm asking about the World Economic Forum.
Was he a part of it? Was he a member of?
No. He was in a group that a lot of wild things came out of, and I'll tell you more about it after the interview. But I cut it. I was like, this is bullshit. Like, you're just trying to fucking get notoriety and fame and whatever the hell you're pushing. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't even make any damn sense. So let's just cut this right now. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
But so I mean, the disinformation agents are everywhere, and also, I mean, I think a lot of people don't even realize that they are disinformation agents. It just, they get fed some bullshit from the government, and then they start talking about it, and they wrap their whole identity around it, and it becomes their identity.
Well, I mean, we have Operation Mockingbird that really happened. We've got 400 people in major news networks that are just mouthpieces for intelligence. And you had journalists that were actually operatives, and their cover was just, I'm a journalist. Mm-hmm. You had journalists introducing politicians overseas, and you had journalists that were essentially bagmen for the agency overseas, or they would say, you can use my hotel room for that meeting. So that's not 100 years ago, that's 30 years ago. And I don't think it ever really ended. I think that's why this platform is a problem, because you can have that interview, you can smell something that smells funny, and you can say, Darren, let's cut it. But MSNBC doesn't do that. They read it, and it's just out there. So, and you see all the media say the same thing. Fox, they all say the same stuff. There's no one saying, you know what, that didn't feel right, let's cut it. But you can do that here. Yep. That's a problem.
We don't cut much. The only time I'll cut something is, we get a lot of military guys that were on high profile missions and stuff like that. And sometimes it's in the moment, it can be hard to know, like, is this still classified? Should I be talking about this? Am I giving up tactics? And so sometimes guys will call in and they'll be like, hey, could we just cut like that one sliver? I said somebody's name, that person is still in, or you know what I mean? And I don't want to blow their cover, stuff like that. I did it with the Sam Shoemate interview where we talked about the Tesla bomber at Trump Hotel in Vegas. Yep. We had actually, that guy was on a mission where in Afghanistan, the bomber, he was a Green Beret. He was on a mission where they blew up a big poppy farm and killed a lot of people, a lot of innocent people. And was it the UN or NATO did an investigation on it? I was like, is this shit real? So we looked it up, and sure as shit, there was a UN or a NATO report, I can't remember, on it. And it did actually happen. And one of the DEA operatives reached out to me and was like, I was on that. My name was in that email. Could you please black it out, because I'm still undercover and I'm doing different stuff. And if that comes out, then I'm screwed. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yep, we'll black the name out. Like, I'm not gonna compromise U.S. intel guys or DEA or military that are still active because I mean they're doing them.
They don't have an agenda. They're
job.
just doing a job.
But so I'll take stuff like that out, but I won't take. And then we just had somebody actually that had somewhat of a relationship with Epstein, and they wanted that pulled out, and I was like, that's like the whole interview. I can't pull that.
You said no.
I said, it's in there or we're not kicking it out the door.
Okay. Well, you gave them the option.
Yeah. And they were like, okay, put it out. And it was like,
I have to look at that one. I have to watch that one.
It's not out.
Oh.
They said, put it. Oh, they're like, okay, fine, put it out. And then they're like, no, just take this. And I was like, just fuck that. We're not dealing with this shit. Like, you come in here, you know what this is. Be ready to do it or don't come. And so, but that's kind of how I deal with it. But that's how it works, man. That's how it works. It could be one sentence in a several hour long interview, and that's the snippet. That's what they want to inject into the consciousness of the people.
Do you think that changes from administration to administration? Or do you think it's operating, I don't want to say shadow government, but it seems like that goes on no matter who's in the White House?
Yeah, I don't think any of these people are good. I don't think they are good people at their core. And I think this just continues to happen. The agenda's changed, but the tactics don't.
Do you think they think they're good?
I think that they fall into traps and they don't see a way out. And then they just get sucked in.
I can see that. I can understand that.
I think some of them maybe start out. I think there are good ones in there. The only politicians that I really trust is Eli Crane out of Arizona and Tim Burchett out of Knoxville, Tennessee. Those are the only ones that I 99.9% think are good human beings and cannot be swayed.
And those two have been stonewalled by intelligence.
Yep. When I got approached about running, I called a couple of people, both of those guys. I called and I was like, I want to have an impact. I've been approached about running. What do you think? And they were like, don't do it. And Eli, for an example, he's like, I can't get on any of these fucking committees. He's like, they won't put me on any of these committees because I won't play ball.
Right.
And he goes, if you can't get into the committees, you're just a beat suit in a chair. You have no impact. And on top of that, they said, what you're doing now has way more impact than you ever could have if you were to get into office. So I decided I'm not doing it. And then diving into it more, I do. I think that's how they're controlled. And being, going like at the beginning when we were talking about the entertainment industry, which I hate, it's you start to see like they want you to talk about this subject. They want you to talk about that subject. They don't want you to talk to this person. And it's like, your job is to fucking get me business, not talk about who I talk to or what I talk about. Go get business. Don't fucking interfere with my show. Mm-hmm. And so, I got rid of all of them. And I start to see it again, like I said, with politicians. You come in here, I think we share, at the beginning, some of the ones that I brought on, and a lot of these people weren't even on the radar to get picked up at the administration. So I didn't know. I didn't even know their aspirations. They were just good guests to get. But, now that I've created this network within politics, they try to manipulate me.
Of course.
And it can be hard to get a phone call from somebody very powerful that wants you to do something. And I just ghost them now. In fact, I'm getting ready. I had told you I get so paranoid about it that it sent me down this rabbit hole. I had to find the black phone that can't be traced. I found it, but it's going to be a big step to be untraceable. a really big step to be untraceable.
Yeah.
If you don't have a phone number, that's how you do it.
And if you
But
don't have a phone number, I think the Patriot Act would find you relevant for investigation.
well, I'm going to try it. So, but and then we're developing. The phone's very expensive, and so anyways, we're developing an app that's more consumer friendly. That doesn't have all the features that the phone has, but it's enough, and to make you invisible.
I would like to learn more about that at some point.
I'll tell you about it offline.
Okay.
I can't go too far into it quite yet.
They don't want that app coming out.
But it's happening. We're doing it, but yeah, I think what happens is that they fall into these traps, not realizing they're a trap. That's where I was going in the entertainment industry. There's also traps. There's these favors. I did this for you. You didn't do that. You didn't do shit for me. I could have connected with that person on my own.
Right.
I didn't fucking need you. Go get business. But it becomes this favor brokering thing. And what I see, and this is very recent, is I see how minuscule the favors are. And it's like, this person helped me do this, so you shouldn't talk to this person about this. And it's like, that person was just doing their fucking job, man. That's not a favor. That's their job,
right?
Is to get your ass in there. That's not a favor. And so if the favors start at that minuscule of a level, then what happens when the big favors start coming up, like Epstein protecting your friends, shit like all the corruption that we see happening. And I think they get so wrapped up in these favors and they get trapped, and then it gets more evil and more evil and more evil, and they don't see a way out, and they get addicted to power, really addicted to power, and they are controlled through favors, blackmail, shit like that.
Don't do favors. I never ask favors. I was teasing Jeremy about it, just offering all kinds of great stuff, contacts, whatever. I said, I don't ask favors. Because when I do, I really need it. But I don't ask favors.
That and those favors, yeah. I don't ask for favors either.
No? But when you do, it's like, oh, he really needs a hand here.
Yep.
Have you seen guests you've had on other shows that you released and realized you got burned?
How so? What do you mean?
Meaning like you let an episode go out and this person shows up on another show or two and you're like, God damn it, they got me.
What do you mean they got me?
They got that one line out.
No.
Okay.
Well, I don't really watch any other shows.
Okay.
So like I said, I get all of my information through this. Not all of it, but the majority. I scroll enough to get interest in certain subjects. I'm not fucking around. You are the only. The Y-Files is the only YouTube channel that I watch on a consistent basis. But I don't do it. And also I don't want to take somebody else's creativity, because when you start to watch all this other stuff, it's like, oh, I should be doing that. I don't want that. I want everything here to be organically generated, the set, everything, and it's my creation. It's what me and my team have come up with, not we need to be more like this guy or we need to be more like this guy. So now I haven't seen a one-liner, and it would be impossible to pick out because a lot of times they're talking about the same shit. But so no, it's just a thought that'll hit me like a bolt of lightning all of a sudden, and it's like, that was a mistake.
Yeah.
But you couldn't have known. You couldn't have known it was a mistake at the time.
Especially if they're really good at it.
It's in retrospect that you see it.
It's a very strange position that you're in. I don't envy it.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stress and anxiety.
I bet. Just with the things I do is stress enough. But this is serious, what you do here. I'm just an entertainer. At least that's, I just talk to a fish is my line.
Yeah, well, you're kicking a lot of rocks over. That can be dangerous.
There's a lot of centipedes under there.
Yep.
I try not to I name names if I don't have to. You know, I mention Clapper because that infuriates me. But I try not to criticize anyone who's like around. I'm not looking to make enemies. I'm not looking to embarrass anybody or out anybody. You know, when I talk about the conspiracies and the alien stuff, the only names I really name are like the guys who say they were in the Marines and they did this thing. Like stolen valor is, I'm wired to not like that. So I'll just name your names. But otherwise, nah, not looking to make waves.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever searched yourself online? You'd be shocked at how much of your personal data is out there. Phone numbers, home addresses, info about your family. It's all on the open web, all without your permission. That's why I'm so glad I found Aura. Aura does all the heavy lifting, automatically removing your info from data broker sites and helping you take back your privacy and peace of mind. And it's not just data broker removal. Aura also offers a password manager to lock down your accounts, fraud alerts, and more. Your data is already out there. The question is, what are you going to do about it? For a limited time, Aura is offering our listeners a 14-day trial when you visit aura.com/SRS. That's enough time for Aura to start scrubbing your personal info off these data broker sites. That's aura.com/SRS to sign up for a 14-day free trial and start protecting you and your loved ones. That's aura.com/SRS. Certain terms apply, so be sure to check the site for details. Why are elite athletes and high performers using Armora colostrum? Because Armora colostrum is nature's first whole food with over 400 bioactive nutrients working at the cellular level to help build lean muscle, accelerate recovery, and to fuel performance, all without artificial stimulants or synthetic junk. Armora can help strengthen immunity, help ignite metabolism, and so much more. I've been using Armora ever since they sent me some to try. I have more energy and faster recovery after long days and workouts. Whether you're running a business, training hard, or just want an edge, Armora can help optimize your body for peak output. I've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 30% off your first subscription order. Go to armora.com/SRS or enter SRS to get 30% off your first subscription order. That's armra.com/SRS. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. These statements and information are not a substitute for or alternative to seeking care from your healthcare providers. Yeah, we've had a couple of stolen valor guys on. In fact, one of them, the Army is investigating that person on stolen valor. And if it comes out, I'm waiting for the official investigation to run, but if it comes out, then I'll have to make some kind of a statement or something. But
Because you released that episode?
yeah. Yeah, but that person's been around for a long time. I got a lot of flack afterwards. This person came on, and then all these other people started diving into his background, and it's caused it's been a huge pain in my ass. But I can't verify, somebody's service account.
No.
That would take months, maybe years, to track everybody down that was there. And it makes me sick that somebody would do that. But, my argument, I got approached by somebody. My argument was, well, I see you coming at me and you're fucking blaming me for platforming this person. How would I have known that? And, but so it's great. You want to hold me accountable. Why don't you hold the fucking U.S. Army accountable?
Right.
That would be the right thing to do, because I'm just a podcaster. This person is still in. And so don't you think that the U.S. Army should be held accountable for sending a guy out and spreading bullshit, fucking stolen valor lies? I never thought of that. Maybe you should fucking think about that.
He was sent out by the Army?
He wasn't sent out by the Army, but he's still in.
Yeah, it's
But they took that, suggestion that I did, and they got in touch with whoever at the Army, and now the Army has actually opened an investigation on this person.
well, good.
So, yeah, but
People think maybe we, and certainly you, should be doing more background than we do, and it's like because I get things wrong all the time, and I just try to be as honest as possible. Like I'm not an expert on any of this. No, I didn't look into this person's background since the beginning. So yeah, that whole thing was bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to entertain.
yeah,
You can't track down all of these people and their entire background. We just never get anything done.
yeah, exactly. And back to my previous point, whether it's stolen valor or not, and it very likely is, I mean, that's not affecting somebody's decision making.
No.
So it's a, fictional novel that you're listening to instead of, actual events that happen. Now, it does really fucking piss me off because if he did that, that takes away from every other, heroic icon that sat across from me in that chair, and that's disgusting. But, but did it affect somebody's decision making throughout the day? No, it didn't.
And I don't think your audience forgives you. They understand. Mm-hmm. I would guess. Mm-hmm. Mine does for the most part. The good ones.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
If I get something wrong, I just say it.
The loudest motherfucker in the room's always the biggest shitbag.
That's right.
So
It's just the problem is I tend to gravitate toward the negativity bias. I'll ignore 99 compliments, and then the one guy who's screaming at me for the thing I got wrong and the stupid thing I said, that's what I focus on. It ruins my day. It's like, this guy's name is like Joe Below 69. What do I even care?
Yeah.
But I can't help it.
it's probably a bot anyways.
Probably a bot.
But let's dive into the Giants.
Okay, good. We'll lighten it up. Patriot. You see, I get all cagey with Patriot Act, but Giants will be fine. Giants are fun. And where do you want to start? The beginning?
Yeah.
Giants are in every culture's history. Every culture's got giants mentioned. Ancient Indian Vedas, Native Americans, island of Malta, East Asian. Every culture has giants. And the Bible, of course. Epic of Gilgamesh. So giants show up all through our culture. And whenever I see that, a lot of what I do is just pattern recognition. Like I wasn't even really a flood myth guy until I started doing my show. And it's like, this flood story keeps showing up over and over, no matter what I'm talking about. The flood myth shows up, and it's always showing up at the same time as like the end of the Younger Dryas. Like these things, it's just the same pattern over and over. Maybe it's a coincidence, but if one culture has a story about a flood, then they have a story. If two cultures have it, it could be a coincidence. But if you get 40 or 300, then maybe there's something to it. Maybe it really happened. So I'm pretty sure that flood happened. Now, as for giants is tricky because we don't have any hard evidence, but we have a lot of circumstantial evidence where the most recent would probably be late 19th century, early 20th, where you just had these discoveries all over America, over 1,000 of them, of these amateur archaeologists finding giant bones. And the story is always the same. Is this guy's he's digging and he's like desecrating a Native American burial mound, finds these giant bones, calls the Smithsonian. They come over, they investigate, they take the bones, they go back, and then it disappears. Like that happens over and over through these stories. Is the Smithsonian conspiracies always involved? But
So are you saying the Smithsonian hides evidence of giants?
I'm saying that the conspiracy theory is that the Smithsonian hides evidence of a lot of things. The Smithsonian, of which I'm a huge fan of. Like if I go to DC, I spend 4 days there. I love the museum part. But what we don't see is we don't see the kind of the dark underside of the Smithsonian. Like when it was formed.
Like the Vatican.
the Vatican. We can talk about that too. The Smithsonian, I think the first director might have been John Wesley Powell. I could be fact checked on that. Who was he spent a lot of time with Native Americans. He respected them. He saw them as very intelligent and resourceful. So they were well represented in the Smithsonian. But then he appointed, I forget the gentleman's name, but he was like the chief ethnographer for the East Ohio or something like this, some crazy title. And he gets into a position of power, and it turns out that sees Native cultures as Native Americans as not as subhuman. He called them specimens. He would put like their body parts on display and stuff. Look at these Native American specimens. So there'd be all these discoveries of these amazing mounds, like the Serpent Mound in Ohio, and all this stuff all around the country. And the Smithsonian would say there must have been another advanced race here because Native Americans are they're savages. They couldn't never build this. And that became kind of embedded in the Smithsonian for a long, long time, is this isolationist theory is what they called it, where before it was called diffusionism, where diffusionism was cultures from all around the world interacted. But then the new regime came in and said there's no way that Native Americans from the Mississippian culture could interact with the Mayas or the Incas. They were too savage to do that, which is ridiculous. That's like, saying that Carthage didn't have anything to do with Rome. Of course they did. And we've learned later that some of the biggest, most advanced cities in the world, of the ancient world, were here in America. Like the city of Cahokia was a Mississippian culture. It was bigger than London. It was bigger than Paris. It was like a big advanced civilization that just got kind of covered over. And so the Smithsonian just sort of had this worldview that they're just locked into it. And I think we see a lot of that with pseudoscience, pseudo-archaeology. If it doesn't fit the mainstream narrative, then you're marginalized, you're censored. Again, Graham Hancock, when Ancient Apocalypse came out, it was called the most dangerous series on Netflix because it was white supremacy and all this crazy stuff.
White supremacy?
Because if it's an advanced civilization that was here before us, the implication is that it was white. When he never says anything like that. He's married to a woman of color. So it's infuriating. Because he took a lot of heat for that show.
I love that show.
Of course. And you don't have to believe all of it. And I don't subscribe to everything he does, but I'm fascinated by the topics. And we can get back to giants in a second. I'm just trying to set up that there are forces that want to keep certain things away from us. Mm-hmm. There's an initiative right now to have the Smithsonian catalog and make public everything they have there, which I don't think is going anywhere. The Smithsonian gets very strange carve-outs of laws. There was a law passed not too long ago which required all museums to return anything that was of value to Native American cultures back to the tribes, especially if it was funeral, anything that have to do like funeral, whatever it's called, death rights or whatever, to return all that stuff. So this law is passed. The museums have to do all that. But specifically it says in line after line, Smithsonian is exempt. Smithsonian doesn't count. Smithsonian doesn't have to do any of this. So they don't have to respond to any of it. So then we go back to Grand Canyon or the giants, and we don't really know. It's hard to know what's true because there's over 1,000 reports in newspapers of these findings. But the mainstream narrative is it was giants were cool at the time. It was hoaxes, and it was just to make money. But it's just too many coincidences. And there's one giant story that's interesting because it overlaps several cultures, native cultures, where you've got in like the Mississippi Valley, they have these Indian myths about these giants that they're cannibals, so they're eating the people, and they get driven west by the tribes. They unite and drive them west into like Nevada and California, and they end up at what's known as Lovelock Cave. And the Lovelock Cave giants are famous giants. They're the red hair giants. So the story goes that they're at war with all these tribes, and during the war, when the natives are falling, they're like eating them in the battlefield. So it unites the tribes, and they drive them into Lovelock Cave, and they seal the cave, and they set fire to the whole place. And an archaeologist goes in there and finds sandals that are like size 29, and these giant clothes that, like, I'm not making this part up. You can go see this. Like, why is there a sandal that's this size, that are all found in the cave, and bones and red hair. But, and all that stuff has been sent back, and then it's just gone. And as recently as just maybe like 20 years ago, at some point, someone discovered these giant coffins with lids on them, and they were sent to the Smithsonian.
Was there anything in the coffin?
Not that I'm aware of, but they were coffins, and they were big. And native cultures didn't do that. They didn't have coffins or bury their dead. At least none that I'm aware of. That was not part of their culture. So this was very strange. So those were sent to the Smithsonian, and then it kind of disappeared. But then, not too long ago, someone picked up on the story and asked the Smithsonian about them, and they said, "We do have record of receiving that, but we don't know where they are." And that was kind of the end of it. And then a few years later, someone else got involved. I think it was John Tierney. John Tierney really went after Smithsonian hard. He wrote a book about, like, Smithsonian is the greatest cover-up. So it might have been Tierney that he said, "Okay, I know that you said you received these. You can't find them. I need you to find them." And they said, "Okay, we found them. But they're in a warehouse it's got an asbestos problem. So no one could go in there." And he said, "Well, when can we go in there?" And they said, "About 10 years. And that was really the last of it. So the Smithsonian gets wrapped up in all these weird conspiracies. There's the Acambaro statues, which is very controversial, which is like 3,000 artifacts that show humans riding dinosaurs. They show Asians, Africans, races that shouldn't be around there, that are carbon dated to 2,500 years ago, 3,500 years ago. And they're sent to Smithsonian. The Smithsonian said, "Yeah, these things are 30 years old. They're a hoax." But they were independently validated by other labs saying, "No, these things are really, really old." Smithsonian's like, "Nah, it's a hoax." And then as time goes on, all those other labs become discredited, like, "Oh, their techniques weren't modern." And that's kind of where the Acambaro has ended up, as far as I know. Because I don't know if anyone really cares enough to follow up on stuff like that. I do. So I kind of want to know, like, what do you have down there? I think they have almost 1 billion artifacts that we can't see. And I just want to know what they are. So all those giant bones that were found, okay, I'm sure 99% of them are hoaxes. And maybe there's a 0.5% that were mastodon bones that were misidentified. But what happened in Lovelock Cave? We know stuff was in there because there was a tribal leader, a woman who became kind of a famous author. She had red hair woven into like some of her traditional garb. And she said it's from the Lovelock Giants. Like, where did she get that red hair? So I'm not saying it's real. I'm just saying I would like to know what's the chain of custody there. So there's just a lot of those.
I mean, this all came from biblical stuff, though, correct?
Yeah. So the biblical giants, you don't see much of them in the canonical Bible. The Nephilim are mentioned once, and I could talk about them a little bit. But we learn more about giants when the Book of Enoch is discovered. And the Book of Enoch was discovered when, like, an adventurer, I forget when it was, maybe 18th century, was looking for the source of the Nile River, which was kind of a big deal at the time. And he found it. And it was somewhere in Ethiopia. And he gets to know the locals there, and they're Ethiopian Jews that have been there for 3,000 years. So he's friendly with them. They take him up to their, whatever you call it, their church, and he sees this giant book. What's like a giant book? What's that? He said, that's the Bible. He said, oh, it's a Bible? They said, no, that's the Bible. When the King James Bible, I don't know how many books it is, like 66 or something like that, where this had over 100 books. And in there were Book of Enoch, the Book of Giants, all this other stuff. So you have Genesis that starts, basically let there be light. But in this expanded Bible, you have all this stuff that happened before then. So we know a little bit about Moses from the Bible, but if you read these other books, you learn all about Moses and Enoch and Methuselah, and these men are all related, and going back this like 10 or 12 generations from Adam, it's all in there. And this kind of ties in with the pseudo-archaeology and how mainstream wants you to stay in your lane. So this book is discovered, and they've had this for thousands of years. There's the story of the Queen of Sheba. There's only a little bit about her in the main Bible, but this expanded Bible has the Queen of Sheba going up to meet King Solomon, and she's fascinated by him, and they fall in love, and she gives him a child named Menelik, and that ties into the Ark of the Covenant and all that stuff. So we have that one story, but it's kind of an outlier. It's Ethiopian Jews, which is kind of strange, but legitimate. But then much later, the Dead Sea Scrolls are found, and then among the thousands of parchment there's the Book of Enoch, copies and copies of it, and the Book of Giants. So the story is that there's these sky gods. And this story, for people who know it, is going to track exactly with the Anunnaki. It's going to track right with it. This Bible story is going to track right with it. So you've got these sky gods, and they send watchers down to Earth. And their job is to shepherd and guide humans, teach them animal husbandry and agriculture and all that stuff. But the watchers become corrupt and fascinated with human women. And Hecklefish says, oh, that's not going to end well. And it didn't. So the watchers, who are probably angels, they interbreed with humans. And then their offspring are the Nephilim. And the Nephilim are they're giants. In some books, they're 350 feet tall. They're vicious. They're violent. They're cannibals. And these are the unholy offspring of the angels and humans.
Is it angels and humans or demons and humans?
In the earlier books, what's the difference? I don't think the books really take a stance, because the Watchers are there with good intentions. But I think there's lessons in all of that anyone could be corrupted. Certainly, Persian women are pretty enough, so. The giants now they're ravaging the world, and they're just making a mess of things. And that's when God decides it's got to stop. We got to start over. And then he wipes it away with the flood. But the Book of Enoch expands on all of that and has Enoch going up to heaven to speak to God. And that's heresy to say, because heaven's not supposed to be a place. Like, mortal man can't go to heaven and certainly can't come back, but Enoch did. And he was specifically taken there. I think he was taken there by Uriel and taken up there in a chariot of fire. And then Enoch is walking around heaven, but he's describing a place where he's seeing tall beings of light going about their business, and the walls are covered with how he describes as emeralds that are just blinking lights on and off. And he talks about how he can see all of the earth, and he describes how he can see how the winds are made, and I can see every lake and river on the earth. And when you think of heaven, you think of clouds in the sky, but Enoch said that there's a roof, there's a ceiling, and everything is shiny. And what it sounds like he's describing is a spacecraft, if you read the book. Like if you read the book through a modern lens, it's like this guy is on a UFO, is where Enoch is. So he's up there, and they take him all around the cosmos. And this is all in the book. He describes the solar system, and he's told the Earth goes around the sun in 364 days, which we weren't supposed to know any of that then in the book of Enoch. And then he's given a directive from God to go take this message down to the Nephilim and the Watchers that, you know, if you don't get your shit together, it's going to get bad down here. And they ignore the order, and that's when the flood comes. And then only one man is chosen to survive the flood, and that's Enoch's grandson, and that's Noah. And that's where the Noah's Ark story comes from. But it tracks pretty closely with the Anunnaki story and the Cataclysm, and it tracks a little bit with the Epic of Gilgamesh and Utnapishtim and the flood there, and a lot of these other stories.
Wow, that's fascinating.
I think so.
Didn't the Smithsonian cover up Adam and Eve or something?
Are you talking about the Adam and Eve book?
Yes.
Oh, that's a different one. That's so that's a book. It was released in 1966 by Dr. Chan Thomas, and it's called The Story of Adam and Eve. And that story title sounds cute until you read it and you realize he's talking about it really Adam and Eve. And the story is it's this 278-page manuscript that is classified by the CIA, and they've removed 200 pages. There's only like 50 or 60 pages left, and half of those are blank. And the CIA says it's been sanitized. And the reason that the CIA was so interested in the book of Adam and Eve is because it describes the end of the world. And Dr. Thomas in the book talks about pole shifts and what happens when the poles shift. Something happens to the inner core of the Earth, our electrical field gets thrown off, and when that happens, the poles shift, and it's something that happens over and over and over again. And his pole shift is a 90-degree shift, so Antarctica goes to the equator, and the equator goes down south. Like it's violent. And as it's shifting, the atmosphere continues to rotate, west to east. So that he describes in the book just walls of water and this wind and debris just tearing across everything. Cities are reduced to waste. He says New York, Boston, Chicago, LA are nothing but memories. New York is at the bottom of the sea. And Antarctica is at the equator and becomes, like a tropical land. And the story is the CIA wanted this suppressed because it would cause chaos and all that. And that was a story that was recommended that I cover. And it was one that I got a lot of people angry at me because I debunked all of it. I debunked the whole thing. That it was never 287 pages or whatever. It was just 50, 60 pages. And it was never classified. What happened was, and they said Chan Thomas was a fake name, but it's not. His name is Dr. Chauncey Powers. Chauncey Powers Thomas. And the book was never classified. What happened was he was an engineer at McDonnell Douglas working on anti-gravity and missile guidance and kind of some weird stuff like that. And his coworkers said he's very intelligent, but he's kind of eccentric. And what I believe happened, because I found the CIA file on him, is they've got the book, but there's also like People magazine, and there's a shopping list, and there's these like random documents. And I think it was just, he's working on this like top secret stuff. He's wacky. They probably had just an officer just keeping an eye on him. Like, we just keep a file on him because he's on Johnny Carson. This is a weird guy. He's not supposed to do that kind of stuff. And then, and the book was never really classified. He updated it. It was never classified. Then later he writes a book he updates it. He adds angels and UFOs and ESP into the book. It starts to get kind of wild. He writes another book about how to give natural childbirth, which I thought was strange.
Interesting. Where were you going with the Vatican?
I wasn't going anywhere, but we could talk about the Vatican.
I'd love to talk about the Vatican.
Man, where do we start? Where do we start with the Vatican? The secret archives?
Yeah. What's in there?
So many rumors about what's down there. The Vatican secret archives, they're down under the Vatican. They're called the Apostolic Archives. You can't go there. I mean, you can. You can. People can go to the Vatican archives. You have to get permission. There's like a 10 to 15 year wait, and you have to tell them what you want to see before you go. So, and while you're there, you can't touch anything. Someone will turn the pages for you and all of that. So you kind of can't go there. But rumored to be down there is the Spear of Destiny. The Ark of the Covenant is supposed to be down there. The menorah.
What is the Spear of Destiny?
That is the Spear of Destiny, or the Holy Lance, was with the Roman soldier pierced Christ when he was on the cross. That's the Spear of Destiny. That was something that Hitler was very interested in finding. Hitler was chasing these artifacts all over the place. As soon as the Nazis conquered France, they started digging everywhere, like the Chartres Cathedral was where the Ark was supposed to be. They were digging up everywhere looking for stuff. It's like Indiana Jones, which got a lot of those things right. My favorite object that's supposed to be down there is called the chronovisor. And this is an object that lets you see through time. I don't know if you've ever heard of this.
I don't think I have.
So chrono means time, visor means see. So this is an object that you can see through time. It was invented by, his name is Pellegrino Ernetti. Father Pellegrino Ernetti he was a priest, but he was also a physicist, and he was like an expert at music. And he was working with, I think his supervisor was Father Gemelli. He's working at a university or something, and what they're doing is they're studying Gregorian chants and listening to records and cataloging things. And they're listening to one record, and Father Gemelli says, "I recognize that voice." And they play it back, and I'm like, "Well, who's that?" And he's like, "That's my father." I'm like, "Well, what is he saying?" He said, "Well, he's talking about leather and prices and..." Well, it turns out his father was like a shoemaker, like a cobbler. And he heard his father's voice selling somebody shoes. So they end up isolating these voices and come to the conclusion that all the objects around us are vibrating with an energy and picking up all the conversations. Everything we're saying is getting absorbed into everything around us. And that if you can tune into the right frequency, you can hear that. And if you can really zero in on it, you can see what's going on. And Father Ernetti gets together this group of rock star physicists led by Enrico Fermi, who worked on the Manhattan Project, a heavy hitter, and 9 or 10 others. And they build this device called the chronovisor. And Father Ernetti goes and he looks back at Mussolini's speeches, and then he goes back further and he's looking at watching old Roman plays that no longer exist. And what really put it on the map was he took a picture of Christ's crucifixion and released it. And it's a wild photograph because it's Jesus Christ on the cross.
Wow.
And so he releases that to the public, and it hits the newspapers, especially in Italy, like crazy. I think this was the 60s, and becomes a sensation. So I covered that story, but ended up finding out that the Christ in his photograph looks an awful lot like a Christ statue that was carved somewhat recently to that era that was in a cathedral in Spain. And it turned out that that's really what it was he had this photograph that he said he saw Christ, but it was just his photograph of the statue. And then he backtracked a little bit and he said, well, this is really the photograph and the statue's based on this, but that's not what happened. So the chronovisor is just this legend, but according to the story, the Vatican releases a statement at some point that says that anyone who's caught trying to look or listen through time is excommunicated. And that's kind of how that story ends. I couldn't find any evidence of that.
Wow. Man, I thought you were going towards, I just watched this episode about this device. I saw it on this, I can't remember if it was Graham Hancock or Builders of Ancient Mysteries or something, bam. And they found this device at the bottom of the ocean, supposedly. You ruined it for me, AJ.
The Antikythera mechanism.
Is that the thing where they found it and it had like all these gears and
Yes.
none of the watchmaker, like they had Hublot come out and they were the only ones that were able to replicate it. And it was supposedly like this, I don't know, 12,000-year-old device or something. And it perfectly simulated the rotation of the solar system.
Yes, and the stages of the moon and a lot of different things. It was a mechanical almanac is what it was, that all these phases of the moon. But
that wound up being bullshit, right?
not bullshit. It's a real thing, and the craftsmanship is amazing. What's most amazing is that it survived at the bottom of the sea for 1,000 years or whatever. But as they recreated it, they learned that the technology to do this existed. Watchmakers, they can do this. It just, not a lot of that stuff survived because it's so delicate. But this was at the bottom of the sea. I think it's still fascinating.
I mean, even 1,000 years ago to be able to simulate that. So they did have that technology?
Yeah, to make gears and do all that stuff, they did. If you look at, like, Archimedes goes back even further than that, and some of the technology he came up with was wild. I mean, the Archimedes screw is still used as a way to, like, get water to flow backwards because it goes up a screw. It's like a revolutionary thing. But he was famous for creating all these crazy weapons. And one of his famous weapons was these giant mirrors that he used to burn the Roman fleet when they were sailing into, I think he was from Sicily, was Archimedes. So these ancient cultures, they're just way more intelligent and than I think we give them credit for. Which goes back to the giants and the suppression. And if it's doesn't fit what we know about Egypt, then it's wrong and you're an idiot. But our ancestors were pretty resourceful. They made some cool stuff.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, back to Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, Easter Island, the pyramids, all that stuff, man. It's wild. It's like...
Yeah, the Baalbek stone, they don't even know how they made that. But it's like...
What's the Baalbek stone?
That's in Lebanon. They just found a third one not too long ago. I think the biggest one is called the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. And it's massive. It's a big block, and it's dramatic looking because it's kind of laying in the ground at an angle. You can only get a sense of the scope if you see a person standing on it because they're like that tall. And they don't know how this was quarried because it's perfect. And it's the biggest megalith that we've ever found is this giant stone. They don't know what it was for. They don't know who built it or how they possibly could have done it. But then they found another stone. And there's these megalithic structures all over the area that are huge stones. They don't know how to put them in place. And then they just found a third stone very recently that I think is bigger than the other ones. Something like 20 million pounds. Like, unbelievable.
Holy shit. Man, you uncover some wild stuff, too.
It's all rabbit holes.
Man, it's cool. I love it. I remember watching this one where there's these holes in the ground, and I think it's the Northwest, right?
It's Mel's Hole?
Is that what it is? Where this guy was like, put fishing line down there, you can never find the bottom. Yeah,
that's Ellensburg, Washington. That's so. Do you want me to tell you the story?
Yeah. Do you ever go see this stuff?
No, not really.
Why?
Well, I mean, if I debunk a story, why go see it?
Did you debunk that?
How can I tell this? How can I tell you that I haven't told the story yet?
Let's hear it.
All right. Mel Waters buys this property in Ellensburg, like the Monastash Ridge in Washington, in that area. And there's a hole on his property. And he sees that, like, all his neighbors are throwing all kinds of crap into the hole, like old washing machines and all kinds of stuff. They're just using it as a dump. And so he starts doing the same thing. They're all just throwing stuff in the hole. And after a while, he wonders, why does this not fill up? It's very strange. So he goes over there, and he's just he can't see the bottom. He can't hear an echo. And he's out there investigating with his dog. And he's looking, and he looks, and his dog won't come close. Like his dog is like, will not come near the hole. And he looks up and birds are flying around it. Like no, nothing wants to come near this hole. So he wants to figure out how deep this thing goes. And he's a fisherman, so he puts fishing line down there and he's got 5,000 feet and he doesn't hit bottom. He does another spool. He's got 10,000 feet. He ties lifesavers on the bottom of it to put it down there to see if they'll come up dissolved. Maybe it's a well. 20,000 feet, 50,000, till he hits about 16 miles of line down and he doesn't hit the bottom with it. So he
16 miles
16
of line.
miles of line. So
16 or 60?
16.
Jeez.
And he notices that his radios are acting weird. When he's out there working, he's listening to his radio, and when his radio is near the hole, he's picking up these strange things. Like he's hearing old time music, which doesn't make sense. And then he tunes a little bit and he catches a baseball game. He listens to that for a minute and realizes it's a game from 30 years ago. So something is affecting like time around the hole. So at this point, he calls into Art Bell at Coast to Coast. I don't know if you remember Art Bell on that show.
Oh, yeah.
Back then. So he's telling Art this story about how weird this hole is. He talks about how one of his neighbors, his dog died, and he threw the dog down the hole. And the next day, he sees his dog running through the woods with his collar on, but he won't come. It's like he acts like he doesn't know him. Like the hole is doing weird stuff in the area. So he talks to Art Bell a little bit about it, and then Art is trying to get in touch with him and can't, and then finally does. And Mel Waters says, "I wish I never called you." He said, "So I talked to you," and he was out of town for that interview. He said, "I got back into town. I couldn't get on my property." He said there was heavy machinery there. There was military there. They wouldn't let me up. Some guy in plain clothes came down and said, "You can't come in here." I said, "Why? This is my property." He said, "There was a plane crash, so we have to investigate it. There's no evidence of the plane crash. There's no news." And Mel starts to get kind of upset. It's my property, my land. And then the guy in plain clothes says, "I'm not saying we will, but we could find a drug factory or something on this land. I'm just, saying that could happen if you want to press this." And Mel Waters said, "I'll go to the press." The guy's like, "Tell whoever you want. No one's going to believe you." And he gets run off his property. And you don't know if it's a hoax or not, but Art Bell talks to a news crew that goes to the property and they find evidence of tractor tracks in the mud and evidence that there was a military presence there along with machinery. And it's still all blocked off. Mel is eventually contacted by some intelligence and offered a deal. $2 million, you leave the country, you never come back, and you lease us the property, sell us the property. You just never come back. So Mel goes overseas for a while. And this story on Art Bell is 10 years that he checks in. So Mel is overseas. He's in Australia. And it's something like his niece is graduating. So he wants to come back. He's not supposed to come back at all. But he decides to come back anyway. And he's taking a bus. He lands wherever, and he's taking a bus. And there's some type of issue where breaks out on the bus. There's a fight or something. The bus pulls over, and everyone gets off, but he's not allowed off. Like they're holding him back. They get everyone off. A couple of guys kind of grab him. He feels like a pinch, and then he blacks out. And he wakes up 12 days later, and he's in San Francisco in an alley, and he doesn't know what's happened for the last 12 days. And he tastes blood in his mouth, and he realizes his back teeth are missing. Like it's a crazy story. And he's telling all this to Art. And Art helps him like find a place to stay. And he says, "Art, I just got contacted from native tribe and the people who are called the Basque. I don't know if you know the Basque. It's a region between like France and Spain. It's a little area people call the Basque. It's a small community, but it's very unique. So a lot of Basques settled in Nevada in like the 19th century. So this native tribe is working with the Basque, and they call Mel, and they want him to come out because they found another hole. Story gets weirder from here. So he goes out to like consult with them about the hole. And that hole is different. Mel's hole was about 9 feet around, 9 feet wide with this stone retaining wall. This hole is 9 feet, but it's got this metal collar, and it's metal all the way down as far as the eye can see. And it won't vibrate at all. Like Mel drops a tool or something on it and it doesn't make a sound. It's very strange. So they don't bother trying to find the bottom of it. They just start putting things down the hole to see what happens. They start by putting ice cubes down just to see, is it hot down there? So they put these ice cubes down the hole. They pull the ice cubes up, and now the ice cubes are hot. And they catch on fire. Like that, they get transformed in the hole. Story gets weirder. And they do that for a while, and they actually take ice, and some of them are using it to heat their homes. It's very weird. So then they say, someone volunteers to go down the hole. And they're like, no, you can't do that. But they're a shepherd colony. So they send a sheep down the hole in a crate. And they send and the sheep doesn't want to go. Animals don't like this thing. Birds fly around it. Animals don't want to go. So the sheep is freaking out. And they send the cage down at like 1,200 feet, and it stops moving. And they pull it up, and the sheep is dead, but it looks totally fine. So since it's a shepherd culture, they know how to butcher a sheep. So they said, we'll do an autopsy on it. We'll butcher it. So they butchered the sheep, and the entire inside cavity of the sheep is gone. And inside is a giant tumor, just this disgusting, huge tumor. And they cut the tumor open, and inside is what Mel described as a fetal seal, like the fetus of a seal with human eyes. And it's looking at them. And they kind of just set this seal-looking thing out for a while. They're looking at each other for a couple of hours. And then it eventually kind of inches its way back down into the hole. And once it does that, Mel, who had esophageal cancer, is now cancer-free. Like everyone who was sick in the village is now healed. And the people there think this is some like divine thing that with this, they call it a magic seal. And they believe that it's communicating with them through this radio and like some type of Morse code. They don't know if it's alien language or not. And he's telling Art that I've got pictures of this. I've got recordings of it. I've got all this stuff, photographs. And they finally set up an interview to go over all the evidence, but Mel never shows, and Art is never able to get a hold of him again. And that's kind of where the story ends. And it starts out like a really interesting story, but the theory, at least what I came up with, was the story just got so. I left out so many crazy details because how much time do we have? That the story was getting so out of hand that I don't think he could keep up with the hoax anymore. And he's just like, I can't. How do you top magic seal fetus that heals cancer? So that was a story that I went into just because I liked, I'm a huge Art Bell fan, and that's a classic Art Bell story. That's one of the top ones. I wish it had a better ending. It's so anticlimactic, but it just was such a fun journey, and it's so many opportunities for jokes in there and stuff. I have a T-shirt on it's one of the most popular shirts. It's I went to Mel's hole, and all I got was this magic seal fetus. I wear it all the time.
So is the hole there?
So people have tried to find the hole, and a couple of people have said they found it. So I was doing some research. What was very strange was the area where the hole was supposed to be on Terra server, which is like before Google Maps, was all blacked out. It was all like redacted, which is very strange. But later it does show up on Google Maps. So people tried Mel gave a lot of information of that you could probably find it. I found one place that was very compelling because Mel said on his property he had one building that was kind of falling down from snow, and I'm looking at the pictures of the property, and that building is there. And then right across the way is a hole that's 9 feet wide, with a stone retaining wall. And I looked at that and I'm like, no way. That I for a second there, I thought this was Mel's Hole. But it was investigated. It was just a well, and the property belongs to somebody. But that's one of those stories where I like debunked it, and then I found the pictures. I was like, no.
Damn.
Yeah.
Stuff's crazy, man.
I know, it's the kind of stuff that I talk about, and that's, sometimes the stories just get weirder and weirder, and then they just fall down. That's Mel's Hole. It's just a crazy story with no strong ending.
Damn. How do you find these?
Well, that was easy to find because as an Art Bell fan, I can name like the top 5 episodes that are my favorites. So Mel's Hole is one. Art Bell fans know that one. They know that one in and out. That's why it's so popular. Art Bell fans don't know me, but they're like, oh, Mel's Hole, I want to hear about that. So I knew about that one already. Most of the other stuff, it's either sent into me or it's my brother is into all the weird stuff. He goes to the UFO conventions and hangs out with Thomas Jane and Barefoot and talks about UFOs and stuff. He does all that crazy stuff. So he'll say, oh, you gotta look into this, you gotta look into that. And I know if it sounds really stupid that it's gonna be a good one.
Have you looked into Bigfoot?
Yeah, I looked into it. The famous part of Bigfoot is the Patterson film. It looks pretty good. It's the one that I think everyone's seen. You see the Bigfoot, he's kind of walking in the distance. And he looks back over his shoulder. That's the Patterson film. It's pretty compelling, but almost every piece of Bigfoot evidence it's been hoaxed.
Yeah. Sounds like the Loch Ness Monster.
Loch Ness Monster also, I couldn't find any evidence of it. The famous photos, I debunked all of those. It's like
didn't it? Was it taken in a bathtub or something?
One of those was. It was a bathtub. One was just a boat. People hated that one. But Bigfoot's fun because there's native stories that go back a long time that talk about these giant creatures covered in hair, but they lived interdimensional. So it's like you're not going to go find them because they can just phase into a different dimension. Yeah. Which is convenient, but...
Yeah, I'm
not a Bigfoot guy. Those are called cryptids, which are these creatures that are like outside of, cryptozoology. And I don't like cryptid stories. I do them because people like them. So I covered like all weird creatures, whether it's the Jersey Devil or Bigfoot or Chupacabra or all these creatures. I cover them because people like them. But the evidence always sucks. And my show is not like... When I was starting the channel, looking at these topics, there were 2 types of channels. There were the ones that were all in, Darren, right? Just everything's true. And it's like, well, yeah, but what about it? It's like, no, true. And then the other stories where you're just people telling these weird stories, but they're like snarky and sarcastic. Like it's condescending. Mm-hmm. I don't want to name any YouTube creators, but you know who you are. And that annoys me because that's just making the story about you, about how smart you are, and I'm stupid because I think this is a cool story. So there was just that. So I said, well, why don't I tell the story and make it fun? And then if anyone wants to stick around for what I found, I'll do that. And most people don't.
You do a damn good job of it.
As soon as I say, but is it true? I see the numbers go, everyone's like, nope, don't care. Don't care.
Oh, man. What, if I can ask, you don't have to answer this, but what do you line up for the future?
It's really just the conversation end of the show. That's the next phase. The studio's built. It's called The Basement. It looks great. It's like what you would imagine would be the basement underneath the Wi-Fi studio. It's kind of old school and musty. It's super fun. It's ready to go. All it's just waiting for is me to have the guts to book a couple of people and get to work.
Well, I hope you find it quick. I really do. I'm looking forward to that. I think that's going to be awesome. Awesome. Well, AJ, man, I'm just so thankful that we connected. I loved this interview. It's one of my favorite.
Well, thank you for letting me ramble.
Hey, anytime. You want to come here and ramble?
I'll just come here and shoot.
Hey, we could do that too. I got a lot more guns than the Winchester lever action and the SIG. So
thank you.
Love to have you again. I would. And maybe at some point I can come check out the new studio.
Please, anytime.
I would love that. Well, thank you, man.
Good work.
Seriously. Keep up that work. It's awesome. No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.
Come on. Do it. Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it. Do it.
Who is doing it?
Do it.
Do it.
All of it.
Do it.
Come on. Do it now. And I will do the rest.